February 7th, 2022. Sim racing history will be made and a champion will be crowned. For the first time in sim racing history, the Rowdy Energy Monday Night Racing Pro Series Championship will take place live and in person at the Carolina eSports Hub, located in the heart of downtown Charlotte. Experience the thrill of sim racing like you've never experienced it before, as the Monday Night Racing Championship 4 drivers do battle on stage, including guest appearances by other Monday Night Racing and real-life drivers competing live.
Hey everybody, Kyle Busch here. Be sure to grab your tickets for the Monday Night Racing presented by Rowdy Energy Championship Night on February 7th. Grab them today.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium eSports coverage of the 12th race for Season 4 of the Monday Night Racing Pro Series presented by Rowdy Energy, and the first race of the round of 7 Monday Night Racing playoffs. The Sim Seats Challenge live from iRacing's virtual Iowa Speedway in Newton, Iowa. James Pike here, the voice of Podium eSports, alongside Kenneth Bueno and Jacob Hitz. Ryan Bauer producing all the action this evening. Cameras is always provided by Tuggy Beard, and our social media coverage provided by Cameron Albaron. Kenneth Bueno. Round of 7. We are finally here. Should be a lot of fun to see these drivers do battle in the trucks at Iowa as we take a look at the point standings entering tonight's race.
It is going to be a lot of fun. We whittled it down from 10 to 7. We had a very scintillating championship battle just 1 week ago where we decided which 7 were going to advance. This is the first time, though, James, that we ever visit the Iowa Speedway here in Monday Night Racing competition. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Put these trucks around on a very bumpy surface. It's going to be a very interesting race to see who can get the advantage in the point standings.
Jacob Hitz, this track here at Iowa Speedway, very intriguing. It's a little bit different. Rusty Wallace's creation back in 2006, and boy, does it feel like a track he'd love to run at.
It certainly does. It's almost like the redheaded stepchild of Richmond Raceway. That's kind of how drivers look at this racetrack. It almost drives completely different, though. It's a lot more bumpy. These drivers definitely have a handful here tonight, and, you know, we saw on Road to Glory that they were able to keep things clean till the end. We'll have to wait and see just how patient these guys will be out here on the racetrack.
Should be intriguing. Tonight we go for 150 laps, just around 130 miles, just around 210 kilometers. Drivers have one faster pair. This is a fixed setup that these drivers are using tonight with a 70% fuel tank. And we have 3 green-white checker attempts if we need them as we get set to take you to our starting grid and our Beef Jerky Pole Award winner this evening. That's going to be Raja Karut with a fast time at 23.042 seconds. He'll start alongside Garrett Smithley. Ryan Vargas and Anthony Alfredo will roll off 3rd and 4th this evening. David Schildhaus begins tonight's race from the 5th spot. 6th will be Brandon Brown of Race XR. Preston Partis will begin from 7th, joined by a Space Station Gaming teammate Will Rogers in 8th. Final 3 drivers in the top 10 of the grid are Gary Sexton and Gabe Wood.
DJ Cummings for Crypto Autosports starts tonight just outside of the top 10 in P11. Playoff driver Adam Cabot in the 17 will roll off from 12th. Justin Melillo for Traxxon.gg. He'll be 13th on the grid, followed by playoff driver Max Kennan to his outside. Floridian Brad Perez in the 60 car will be in the top 15 with Colin Fern for Brandon Built Motorsports to his outside in that 16th spot. Back in the row number 9, you'll find Robbie Lyons in the 19 and the 07 of Ford Martin. Final drivers within the top 10 tonight include Josh Slay in the 1 machine and the 29 of James Bickford for Charlotte Phoenix.
Brian Boris Cook from JGR lines up in P21 with Seth Eggert to his outside. Matt Stallnecht lines up in 23rd. Mark Rebellis in 24th. Case Kallenbach and Brett Baldeck from Fox 46 lines up in P25 and 26. Mike Clay, covered in the NFL for ESPN, Steve Affont will line up to his outside in 28th. Final 4 here on the racetrack: Michael Massey, Garrett Miller, then 31st and 32nd, Shane Van Gisbergen, Devin Henry, rounding out our field of 32 tonight, James.
quick look at the weather this evening in Sim. It's the default day for iRacing, May 15, 2022, right around 8:30 p.m. local time. Partly cloudy skies above us, 69 degrees Fahrenheit air temp, 72 degrees Fahrenheit track temp, winds headed to the north at 2 miles an hour, and humidity of 0%. As the lights are going to be off on the pace car, and we are going to be set for racing at Iowa. First race and the round of 7 coming your way momentarily. The Sim Seats Challenge. Before we go racing, let's go down, see if we can get our word with our pit reporter, Taylor Burris. Taylor, what news do you have for us before we go green flag racing?
But one thing to keep in mind is strategy will be a major player when it comes to pit stops. We saw in the Road to Glory races that a 2-tire stop towards the end of a run could actually help out with actually winning the race. We saw that with Presley Sora in the Road to Glory race, guaranteeing him a spot in the season finale with a championship 4. Keep an eye and see if any drivers decide to take a 2-tire pit stop towards the end of tonight's race, and that could be the key to victory and making it to the Final 4.
Win and you are into the championship finale that will take place live at the Carolina eSports Hub just outside of Uptown Charlotte, North Carolina on February 7th. That announced earlier this afternoon. It will be a massive finale to Season 4 of the Monday Night Racing Pro Series presented by Rowdy Energy. But we have to get there first, and it will be playoff driver Raja Karuth who will lead us to the green flag as he takes off. It's our first big green and green flag of the evening, and the Sim Seats Challenge in Iowa is underway. Raja Karuth out in front early. It's Smithley, Anthony Alfredo working to the outside of Ryan Vargas, and then a whole host of trucks behind them as they battle amongst the top 5 and the top 10. Get it?
Yeah, so far, everybody already looking for some amount of positions. Anthony Alfredo already looking for P2 out of Garrett Smithley as you ride on board with the Duct Tape 6 truck of Ryan Vargas just behind for JD Motor Esports. And it looks like Anthony Alfredo is wasting absolutely no time, James Pike, to go to the front of the field. Alfredo has a nose ahead of Karuth for the lead out of turn 2.
Look at Anthony Alfredo work the outside lane as he goes to the point early on in this Sim Seats Challenge. The Sim Seats driver at the point makes a little bit of sense there, Jacob Hintz, but this is an interesting track because you've got progressive banking in the corners, so you can make the outside work for you. It's almost more important to make sure that you avoid the bumps correctly in the center of the corners here, especially in turn 1s and 2, in order to get the fastest laps.
You can certainly make this a multi-groove racetrack depending on, you're right, how you can avoid the bumps. And for Anthony Alfredo, he's able to take that to his advantage, use that outside, and just kind of cruise around. Remember, we've seen Raja and Anthony have a little bit of issues throughout this season, but they're keeping it clean so far. And it just seems like every single week these last couple of weeks, it's the 23 and the 44 that are wrestling for the lead up at the front early and often throughout the night.
Remember that Raja Karuth had to start at the back last week. He had tangled with Anthony Alfredo earlier on in the season, and race officials gave him an end-of-line penalty to start the race. He drove through the field and continued his march in the playoffs. Locked himself into the round of 7, and now it's the Market Rebellion Crypto Machine currently running in second after starting on pole. But, again, good points tonight here. You might necessarily, be happier with the win, Kenneth, but you're not going to complain with a top 5 finish because you finish in the top 5. There's about a 99% chance you'll find yourself in the championship 4.
Yeah, definitely so, and I think that's what sets this round, James, apart from the last round of the round of 10, because in that first round for the playoffs, we had 3 races. So let's say you messed up at Talladega, you didn't have a great race with the trucks on January 3rd earlier this year, you could pick it up at the Spielberg circuit with the Porsche RSRs. You can pick it up at Homestead in Miami with the Cup Series cars as well, and you can sort of rebound if, let's say, the races don't necessarily go your way. This time around, if you mess up tonight, if you have a horrible race from Iowa this evening, you're going to have to really pick it up at Nashville Super Speedway next week, or else your championship hunt could very well be over. So I figure, at least in the case for Karuth and many other Red Banner trucks here tonight, James, we're going to see them be a little more conservative, a little more careful in their decision making, because they understand that if they have a bad evening tonight, it is not going to be a lot of fun come next week. They want to make sure they can at least have a buffer in this race.
It's an interesting point, and Jacob Hitz, I'll put you in the driver's seat for a moment. If you are a playoff driver, are you maybe a little bit more conservative than usual, given that this round is shorter than the standard playoff round?
I think I would be, just because this racetrack can be hectic. We've seen it before here where we get a lot of cautions. I would rather take it easy, not push the truck too much, and then eventually crash it, wind up at the back, get involved in somebody else's mess. I would rather just take it easy, try and keep the nose of it clean, and be there at the end when it matters. Almost Matt Kenseth sort of logic. Instead of being up at the front and constantly pushing for the lead, just kind of ride around and let the race come to you.
Biggest thing you have to worry about at Iowa, I think, is we get a good look at the battle here. Just a little bit further back, this is 6th and 7th and 8th and company. There's Will Rogers to the inside of Ligonier, Pennsylvania's Garrett Smithley. But overdriving corner entry in turn 1 and exit in turn 4. So easy to put too much gas down and loop yourself around here. And then as they come into turn 1, so easy to brake too late and get into the rear of somebody heading into 1.
And especially given the fact that this track is very bumpy, like Jacob mentioned, this track is not as old as many of the other ovals we've visited so far in this Monday night racing season, but it definitely does show it's around 15 or 16-year-old age when it was born back in 2006. With these trucks specifically, you can have a really hard time finding grip in these tires because at some point throughout the run, we're going to see, especially around lap 20 to 25, trucks are going to start to step out, and especially over this crest right here, as many of the drivers come out of turn 2, that's going to bite a lot of them. Got to really make sure, or at least try to keep them in check and make sure they don't get a little bit too overzealous with these stock trucks as you ride on board with our Fox Sports app in-race supporter that we'll talk to a little bit later. Ford Martin, a pretty good progression for the league owner so far, already up +2 since they're dropping the green flag, currently behind a battle up in front of him.
I have to chuckle at the thought of you saying a track being born in 2006. Then we can confirm for all of you at home that Kenneth Bueno is, in fact, actually older than Iowa Speedway. So if you had any concerns there, don't be afraid. He's got a few chops underneath him. A little bit there. But it is a good battle here, just a little bit further back. We'll get back to the racing. It's David Schildhouse leading this back. But look at this. It's Colin Fern going to the inside of Brad Perez of the Mohawk Foundation Chevrolet Silverado. And just behind them, Adam Cabot trying to return to the championship for the second season in a row.
Yeah, and Cabot's kind of been quiet throughout these playoffs, just lurking around. He's had a couple of incidents, but he had enough of a points gap coming into the playoffs where he was all right through that round of 10. But this is where he's got to be on his A game in this round of 7, because that points buffer that you have doesn't necessarily going to mean that you're a lock for this championship 4. You got to be able to fight your way through this round and the next round coming up next week.
Really have to be mindful of it as we go on board with Ryan Vargas, who is currently trying to chase down Anthony Alfredo for the race lead in this SimSuits Challenge. David Schildhouse just behind them, but Vargas has been right there on lap times with Alfredo's Whitetail Smokeless Chevrolet Silverado. He's been right in the same ballpark. They both ran 24.6s. The difference last time by 2 1,000ths of a second, and I suppose you can do your best announcer impression there if you want, but it is super tight. Last time by, though, Alfredo did pick up a 10th on Vargas as they crossed the stripe.
Yeah, right now, Vargas has been really putting it on. Same deal for David Schildhouse. Can't count him out either in the number 20. He's already up +2. He started just inside of the top 5, and as you ride on board with Roger Carruth, the TobyChristie.com Chevrolet Silverado currently rides in 3rd. But there was something funny between these two when they first ran the trucks a little bit earlier this season to start the round of 10 at Talladega. Of course, Anthony Alfredo, with his announcement of being on R Motorsports, he's going to be running the 23 in real life. But this scheme that Roger, or at least Ryan Vargas, is running right now has a 23 on it. So Vargas decided to duct tape each side of the Chevrolet Silverado and slap on a duct tape number 6 on it, just so he doesn't duplicate Alfredo's number. A very interesting paint scheme out of Ryan Vargas, but the California style Silverado so far making the bow tie go a little bit faster here as he's trying to close in on Alfredo, working that second lane, just trying to see where it works.
I don't know about you all, but I think I'm not the only one in this boat. I look at that truck and I think burgers, and more burgers. Makes me a little bit hungry as we go on board with Max Kennan trying to chase down Preston Partis, one of the duo from Space Station Gaming, who happened to be running nose to tail 6th and 7th, just ahead of Kennan. But Kennan just, I think, pacing for the most part, and maybe trying to learn a little bit from Rogers, from Artis and company. You've got some fast trucks amongst the top 5, but you also have a lot of different lanes you can run in the corner here because of that progressive banking, and you see it a little bit here on this speed shot coming out of turn 4. Yes, everybody will tuck up against the wall, but as we enter the corner, they'll spread out. You start to see them go high, go low, try and figure out wherever they think the speed may or may not be in order to get the fastest lap.
And Taylor Burris pointed out that lap times have already dropped off by a little more than half a second from the start of the run, pretty much a full second now up at the front for the leaders and across the board. So these guys really, I think, are looking for grip more than anything because these tires are falling apart. But that's what makes this place different from Richmond. Even though they look identical, the banking is different. These drivers can spread out more on this racetrack compared to Richmond. You don't see a lot of people choosing to run the outside line there. The outside line eventually throughout the run is going to become a preferred line here.
Because the tires are going to wear off, and it's just going to get trickier and trickier and trickier and trickier to run the bottom, especially because, as you mentioned earlier, Kenneth Cueto, it's the inside that has the bumpiest lane. The further you go up, the smoother this track gets, and if you can hit slip angles right in particular, you can really gain some time, especially late in the green flag run.
Yeah, you definitely can, but I think it matters on what part of the track you're in. And here at Iowa Speedway, you don't see sort of an equalization out of both sides of this venue because you're going to 1 and 2. Yes, there are some bumps in the middle. There are some bumps on the bottom. The middle is going to be really where you want to be with these trucks. You can't go up high, though, because there's a very nasty bump in the middle of 1 and 2 that if you go all the way to the outside wall, chances are it's just going to bottom out. The truck is going to slam onto the concrete, and you're going to go straight into that safer barrier. But then in 3 and 4, you can use pretty much as many lanes as you want, probably apart from that a very, very bottom lane, which it really can slam your car, oscillate the suspension around. But you can go to the middle, which is the preferred lane, but you can also go all the way to the outside wall where it's a lot smoother on that end. If you can look from Will Rogers, is right now he's going to dive it way deep underneath Ryan Vargas, and Vargas already kind of on the back foot here. He went from P2 to P6 in a matter of a couple of laps, and you can see just how the difference in lines makes for a very interesting exit off of turn 4, especially James, where you can get a huge run and sail back to turn 1 and clear the other car in front behind you.
Big stuff there as you go on board with the Space Station Gaming driver Preston Pardis, keeping Max Kennan at bay. These drivers from about 7th to 10th, they might be running door to door and nose to tail, but they largely have settled out on lap times, and more importantly, pretty much everybody here is somewhere between the 24.4s and the 24.6s. That's about a second off of the fastest lap times at the beginning of this race on the fresh tires, but there's not really much in it between the times that we're seeing at this juncture of the SimSeas Challenge.
Well, and if you look at the scoreboard here, everybody's right for the most part. Preston Pardis, he was in the round of 10. He got knocked out after last week's race at Homestead, so he's on the outside. Garrett Smithley and Anthony Alfredo, they both missed the postseason. Same with Brad Perez, but you've got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of our playoff guys, all but one of our playoff guys inside the top 10. The cream has risen to the crop here early on.
Let's go down to pit road and get a word with Taylor Burris. He's got more information on the Space Station Gaming driver you see out the windshield of Max Kennan.
Well, we are talking about Preston Pardis, who's having a pretty decent run, running inside the top 10. Of course, just got back, of course, from Sebring a couple of weeks ago, competing in the SCCA. Did not have the best of runs after getting involved with a last lap incident on Saturday, but is hoping to try to cap off this week here with Monday Night Racing at Iowa. One thing also to keep in mind is a big mover so far, and that is Shane Vance Ginsbergen, one of the winningest drivers in Monday Night Racing competition. Started in 31st position, is currently running in 12th. Of course, the driver and from the Australian V8 Supercars also competed in the iRacing Rolex 24 this past weekend. And then, of course, James Bickford, I have to say, is probably one of the biggest surprises right now, still running in 32nd for that Charlotte Phoenix eSports team. Of course, they just newly announced that they are entering into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series in 2022. As we see him on board, definitely looking to see if he can get a caution to get back in contention for tonight's race.
As we get a good look at James Bickford and his Charlotte Phoenix truck, we remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by our friends at SimSeas. Since 2009, SimSeats has been designing and fabricating high-quality driving simulators, including motion systems, custom fabricated parts, and complete turnkey iRacing packages, all made in the United States of America. As you see the incident right on your screens to bring out the yellow flag. That's a conveniently placed camera in turn number 3, but it's Shane Van Gisbergen and Brandon Brown that get together and bring out the first yellow of the evening, Kenneth.
And it looked like it was coming out of turn 2. This was, by the way, just behind where Brad Perez had struck the outside wall, going into turn 1, but Perez has absolutely nothing to do with this incident. It's just behind him is the 12, slides up, gets into the outside wall, and then as he checks up heavily, gets into the 97 of SVG, and then grabs the wall on the inside. Both of them go tailing for the apron, and I believe here at Iowa, you can definitely kind of get away with no caution if you spin underneath the racing line, but right there, definitely a yellow from race control. As you see right there, it looks like SVG just had a great run coming out of turn 2, could not find a space to dig a nose in, got into the 12 as the 12 was getting unsettled naturally by himself out of that second corner, and all of a sudden they both go straight into the wall, both of them with heavy damage. Not sure if they're going to be able to continue tonight.
Race control has put that one on Shane Van Gisbergen, so the Australian Supercars champion will go to the rear of the field. Taylor Burris, we'll go down to you for our first round of pit stops.
Everybody's making their way into their pit box. Devin Henry in the 77 misses his pit stall. He'll have to back it up. But looking over at Shane Van Gisbergen's number 97 does have some severe damage to the nose. That Chevrolet Silverado along with Brandon Brown. But as they race their way off of pit road, Adam Cabot misses his pit stall. This will now give the opportunity for David Schildhaus, then Garrett Smithley, Raja Carruth, Anthony Alfredo, then the 24 of Will Rogers will round out your field of top 5 drivers that stop. And I gotta say, that was a fast stop by Garrett Smithley, the fastest one of the night, 13.6.
A fast stop for Garrett Smithley. Anthony Alfredo came in. Leader will go out fit. That was a poor pit stop for him. He missed his stall by just a fraction. Had to back it up just a bit, I saw. Loses track position. We'll be back with more coverage at the SimSeats Challenge for the Monday Night Racing Pro Series presented by Rowdy Energy from iRacing's virtual Iowa Speedway on Podium eSports just after this.
Everything I see, live large, no apology. Take charge, no one can compete. I just do what comes natural.
Welcome back to Podium eSports coverage of the SimSeats Challenge. Since 2009, SimSeats has been designing and fabricating high-quality driving simulators, including motion systems, custom fabricated parts, and complete turnkey iRacing packages, all made in the United States. Their customer base includes all kinds of drivers, from amateurs to professionals, and their passion for racing drives them to build better sim racing equipment. Don't limit your track time of the weekend. Visit www.sim-seats.com for more information today. As we get the big green egg, green flag once again in the SimSeats Challenge, it's David Schildhaus that goes to the point ahead of Garrett Smithley, with Raja Carruth in tow in third, bouncing all over the racetrack as they make their way back to the backstretch in Iowa.
Bunch of bumps there in 1 and 2, but David Schildhouse, after beating everybody off of pit road with Anthony Alfredo having a bit of a mistake entering his pit stall. He's now, oh, it's him and Roger Carruth get way loose out of turn 4. Both Alfredo and Carruth are able to save it. It was a huge, about 45-degree angle out of the Marco Rebelli and Crypto Chevrolet Silverado. Alfredo is in the midst of the Hornet's Nest, and as they were coming out of 4, it's cold tires that bites both of them. Watch this from Carruth's perspective.
And what did we talk about maybe no more than 10 minutes ago on the broadcast? That it is so easy to overdrive the exit of turn 4 and spin yourself out or get yourself loose, and that's exactly what happened to both Raja Carruth and Anthony Alfredo, who dropped down the standings. Alfredo's back in 5th, Carruth is back to 10th. Meanwhile, ahead of all this, Garrett Smithley is running down David Schildhouse for the race lead, as you saw that Alfredo got a little bit of damage to the right side of his Chevy Silverado, but Smithley and Schildhouse now a battle for the race lead. Smithley had a 10th on Schildhouse the last time by.
And that bobble from Alfredo and Raja really backed up the field from 5th on back. It's a Hornet's Nest, but we're not watching him. We're watching this battle for the lead because Garrett Smithley is saying, you know what? I couldn't find a way to victory lane this year. I'm going to do it in the playoffs when you guys that have red on the spoilers, red on top of the windshield, you guys might need to win the most, but I don't care. I'm running for the race win, and I'll be darned if anybody else is going to beat me tonight.
We'll keep one eye on that, one eye on this battle a little bit further back. Here's Raja Carruth live as Preston Pardis got really loose in the center of the corner. You saw it just off the top of Carruth's truck. There goes Gary Sexton to the outside, but this is a really good sense of just how tricky it is right in the heart of this, as Carruth is going to slide all the way back to 11th and then turn. Oh! Pardis in the middle of the front straightaway and collect Gary Sexton, and I believe that might have been Boris Cook, who was the third truck involved, but it's our second yellow flag of the evening, and this one was pretty straightforward. Jacob hits.
Yeah, well, they were wrecking behind him as well, but Raja Carruth got loose coming off turn 4 on the outside line, came down, turned the 42 of Preston Pardis. That turned Gary Sexton around. Brian Boris Cook bounced it up into the air. The 4 Brett Baldeck spun it around. I think he got some assistance in the back of the field to get spun out, but Raja Carruth, playoff driver, barely made it in as we go on board with Brett Baldeck, barely made it into the round of 7. He has a big hole to dig out of because the front end of that truck is demolished.
Big time accordion effect there for Brett Baldeck. Couldn't really do much of anything. Got run over. First couldn't check up in time, then got run over from behind. And now you'll get another look at Raja Carruth, who, to his credit, Carruth did come over voice chat and claim responsibility for that wreck. So he'll probably get the EOL. But certainly something that you can note. If you claim it, it will certainly look better in the eyes of race control. They might be a little bit more lenient on you later if you end up in a gray area situation where it might not necessarily be clear cut as to who may be responsible or not for the incident. Here's James Bickford's on board, and you can see this all playing out in front of him, and he just got on the brakes like everybody else, stayed a little bit higher, and then had to duck to the outside, but self-cleaning track, Kenneth Bueno. Eventually, what goes up will come down, and will give you a lane up top to get through.
And the seas will part, at least to say the least, but the sea was very wavy around where Raja Carruth was on that incident. And I was about to mention, to your point, James, that it was going to be even more tricky in the fact that when we saw 3-wide action, when they were about wrecking before Carruth got into the wall and then tagged down the track, I was going to say it was going to be more tricky for 2 of those drivers there, Colin Fern and Carruth, because again, they're part of the playoffs, they're running for the championship, they cannot afford a wreck, they cannot afford a mistake, and unfortunately there, Carruth gets pretty much the worst end of it. Also, Adam Cabot, playoff driver, with the incident with Brett Baldeck trying to slow down for it. He's got damage on Hill Silverado as well. So definitely not a great situation for 2 of the playoff competitors, and it could have been very scary for Colin Fern. I think he's glad that he can see that in his rearview mirror and not in his windshield.
As everybody runs around under the yellow flag here, we've got some time to talk to our Fox Sports app in-race reporter. Jacob Hitz is with Ford Martin.
There we go. Now you can hear me, Ford. So, a busy day for Monday Night Racing, I would say. Big announcement this afternoon.
Yeah, it was a really busy day for us at Monday Night Racing. Obviously, this has been a lot of work put into this, and including you guys over at Podium have put in a lot of good work and a lot of hard work into this event. So it's been a day, and I've literally got 0 practice. So the fact we're running P11 right now, which is great, but overall it's been a great day for the league for Monday Night Racing.
Where do you expect to go from here out on the racetrack? Sitting P11 with no practice. Maybe it gets better from here, maybe not. What do you think?
Well, I can say we did a pretty good job of avoiding a wreck right there. So we'll kind of see what happens next. The Fox Sports Chevrolet is fast. We're learning as we go. We're trying to save tires at the same time, so still a long way to go. So anything can happen, but we're having fun, and I gotta remember to, while I have the racing hat on, I gotta have the owner hat on as well at the same time. So I gotta be mindful of that.
All right, well, best of luck here for it, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again before this race is done. Best of luck.
Yep, yes, sir. Thanks, guys.
That's our Fox Sports app in-race reporter, Ford Martin. James?
Running 11th, will try and make his way up the field a little bit further. Meanwhile, I wonder if we might be able to get a word from Taylor Burris here. I know he's got some more notes from pit road that took place during that green flag run. So see if we can ping Taylor down on pit road, see if we get a word. Taylor, any information for us?
Taking a look at some of the timings right now after these 12 laps that we just run, some of these drivers were able to run some of their best laps, like David Schildhaus and Garrett Smithley. Others still struggling to see what they can be able to do. I noticed a couple of drivers struggling through the middle of turns 1 and 2, trying to see if they can make some small adjustments to their driving line, because as we know here at Iowa, turns 1 and 2 is a very bumpy corner, and some of these drivers have been struggling with hitting that mark. We saw it a couple of times already with a couple of drivers getting loose off turn 2, and we saw it also in the Road to Glory races where just one small mistake could cost them a chance. We saw actually William Hale get taken out in an incident because of a bump in turn 2. So keep an eye on that here tonight. But other than that, as for the most part, everyone is still trying to get themselves going again. Shane Van Gisbergen and Brandon Brown still trying to get repairs done to their vehicles.
Van Gisbergen and Brown both under their faster pairs and both out of free passes to get their trucks fixed back up if they end up in an incident. Also of note, Raja Karuth joined that bunch under the last yellow, so Karuth has already used his faster pair, and yet again he will have to be fighting with his back to the wall to get a good finish out of this and find a way into the championship 4 as we get another big green flag of the SimSeats Challenge. And that was a great restart for David Schildhaus, who goes clear of the field by maybe 2 or 3 truck lengths, only for Garrett Smithley to start reeling back in as they come to the backstretch.
Yeah, Smithley really putting in this pressure on Schildhaus right now, but it was a great getaway for the 86 of Brandon Bill Motorsports truck of Colin Fern. Almost made it about 3 wide on the opening jump on that restart, and now working the inside of former leader Anthony Alfredo with a bit of help from former season champion Robbie Lyons in the 19 truck. He'll dive into the inside of turn 1. It'll be a 2-for-1 if he can get Vargas in on this special deal. And out of turn 2, Fern already making progress on what has been sort of a charge up through the field up until the start of this race. James, it's an absolute hornet's nest from about 5th on back.
Really tricky stuff there as Brad Perez just gets squeezed out right at the edge of that by Max Kennan. It's Robbie Lyons down to the bottom there for what was Kligerman Sport, what is now eRacer, and is trying to hang on as best he can, but you get such a good run with the momentum up top that makes it really easy to complete passes if you can just pinch somebody down for maybe a 5 or 6 lap stretch.
Yeah, battling on that outside line, it uses up tires if you're up there for a considerable amount of time, but you can certainly gain a lot of spots. So I think late in the race, if we get a couple late race restarts, you're really going to see these guys fan out around the racetrack because they're not going to be too worried about wearing out the tires if we've got a 2 or 3 lap dash to the finish.
Good look here at David Schildhaus and Will Rogers, who has just run down your race leader now with the warm tires. Last time by, yet again, Will Rogers was a 10th faster than Schildhaus, and that's been pretty consistent over the last 3 or 4 laps. Will Rogers thinking about looking to the inside, then thought better of it, tucks back in line, now goes to the outside to try and find room. I almost wonder if he might try and diamond David Schildhaus and cross him over one corner exit to try and find a lane on the inside. That's what it looked like he was trying to do out of turn 4, as we now get a good look at Justin Malillo.
Malillo diving into turn 1 near sort of the mid-pack of the field, but I figured here your leader, James, David Schildhaus, I don't think he's pushing it. I don't think he's really trying to overdrive his Chevy Silverado. I think what he's doing is just trying to save his Goodyear Eagles. Of course, everybody just went down pit road not too long ago, so it's not like he's got fully worn tires on his truck at the moment, but at least in the case for the long run, like we saw in the opening stint before we got the first yellow, Shieldhouse was definitely faster once we got to lap 15, lap 20, lap 25 of a run. So I figure Shieldhouse, although he's letting Rogers, Vargas, Smithley, all these guys start to catch up to him on the short run, I think he's got faith that with his carrying of his equipment, he's going to start to surge ahead, be able to pull away from Rogers and company, and then just continue to control this pace. But right now, Smithley has a mirror full of Ryan Vargas, Colin Fern. Fern, we mentioned him trying to get around Vargas a couple laps ago, finally makes a complete pass there on the outside lane. And as he moves through 3 and 4, he's one of the only trucks, James, on that pretty much 3rd and 4th lane trying to get around that 53.
Everybody working different lanes here, but not really finding too much success yet, as a lot of that field strung out up top and now starting to move up the racetrack as we progress through this green flag run. These drivers all have somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 20 laps on these tires, so the good will be run off just a little bit, and they will need to find different places on the racetrack, usually higher up on the racetrack, in order to maintain speed relative to the drivers around them in the field. Everybody's going to fall off by about a second. That much we know. The key is to not fall off as much as the drivers around you. As we get a good look at Gary Sexton, who is tucked up behind Ford Martin. Looks like Ford might have a little bit of damage to the right rear of his Jack Daniels Chevy Silverado. But for the moment, Sexton currently running a little bit further back in the field in 22nd, trying to get underneath Ford to maybe go to 21st.
But of course, Gary trying to dig himself out of the hole. He was involved in that crash with Roger Carruth and Preston Pardis. And Gary, as well as our own Taylor Burris, they were winners of the iRacing 24 this past weekend, so congratulations to them. They put in a lot of hours in order to make it happen, but hey, you know what? A win is a win. And I just want to mention something that you had just talked about, James, which is that the tires are going to fall off, and you're dead right on that. I think the goal for most of these guys, especially toward the back of the field, is they're going to fall off. The goal should just be make sure they fall off less than the guys in front of you. So just save them enough that you'll be able to catch the trucks in front of you instead of just they leave you in the dust because you can't turn the car anymore.
Look at this battle between Anthony Alfredo and Brad Perez. They have been all over each other for about the last 5 laps or so, but Perez finally gives up the position to Alfredo, who goes to 7th. Meanwhile, this is DJ Cummings we're on board with, getting a good rear bumper of the Mohawk Foundation number 60 Chevy Silverado, and you can use that QR code to donate to the Mohawk Foundation if you so choose. So right there, and you sort of see it just next to the left tail light there. Get a good look. We zoom in a little bit. You also got the QR code on the right side of the door there, just behind the front wheel. But we run for Brad Perez. He's not quite had the luck he would have wanted this year, as we now go back to the race lead battle between David Shieldhouse and Will Rogers, which has settled a bit. Shieldhouse has found his groove, and I think there may have been a point to the idea that Shieldhouse was trying to save his tires. That will pay dividends if we get a long green flag run here, because we're already creeping up on the halfway point of tonight's race.
Yeah, I figure that's exactly what Shieldhouse was trying to do. And of course, David has a lot of experience in this game. He's got a pretty good experience of this track, the Iowa Speedway, with many of the stock cars across the iRacing platform. So if there's anybody that knows how to kind of work around this service and how this simulation works, Shieldhouse would be one of them, as he continues to pull away right now on Will Rogers. And what I'm seeing so far is the thinning of the field. I didn't think we saw that really in the first run. Many of them were still 2-3 wide, still mostly comparative to each other. But at this point, I think we're going to start to see, James, this separation between the ones that are really good on this long run and the ones that may falter if they burn their stuff up a little bit too early. I can already count a handful of trucks that may have been pushing it a little bit too much that could fall back, and of course Shieldhouse among a couple of others who seem to be better over this long run. And remember, a lot of this stuff in the first segment of the race, James, is all about experimentation. You want to see what works, you want to see what doesn't, you want to see what you can do before it gets too heavy for you to control, and that's pretty much what this first stint has been all about. I think the drivers have learned a lot so far.
On board here with Devin Henry for Sports 360 Arizona, a little bit further back in the field. This is 27th and watching. It's Seth Eggert and Mike Clay who makes his return to competition in Monday Night Racing tonight. Been a while since we've seen him. The ESPN NFL reporter might have had a busy weekend this weekend. Perhaps there were a few games of hand egg, as we like to call it in the Podium eSports studios, that needed some covering. But Clay back in Monday Night Racing after the hiatus for the football season and back in control of his truck. He currently runs 25th. Meanwhile, you talked about drivers who might be falling off a little bit. A driver who's struggling to keep up the pace and about a 10th off everybody else around him. Ryan Vargas is getting to struggle for grip. Makes me wonder if he might have run his truck a little bit too hard, burn off those Goodyear Eagles earlier in this run.
All right, Shieldhouse still leading this thing, and everybody else is kind of falling back a little bit. Garrett Smithley's falling back. Will Rogers, who we really haven't talked about, he's slid into this second spot. I'm really interested to see, because we've talked about Will Rogers a lot and how good he has been kind of across the board this year. I'm interested to see if he can make this Final Four, because I think if he can, he's certainly going to bring a lot of competition to whoever else makes the Final Four, whether it's Shieldhouse, Ryan Vargas, even if it's Raja Karuth, who we know has been speedy over the last month or so here in Monday Night Racing. Will Rogers may not be a favorite to win, but he certainly should be if he's able to make that Final Four.
Don't forget, Season 2 champion was Will Rogers. That's worth noting as well, as we now take a moment to bring you tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break as they battle again, and Raja Karuth turns another truck in the middle of the racetrack. This time it's Gabe Wood. We'll get another yellow flag. We'll hold on that midway race break because Raja just got right into Gabe Wood, and it's a night that's going from good to bad to now worse for Raja Karuth.
Well, and I tell you what, James, that wasn't even Raja Karuth's fault entirely there. It was contact between Gabe Wood and Matt Stolnick that started that. And then Raja, it's really tough to tell from the angle that I got here. I don't know if he just got loose coming off the corner and got down into Gabe Wood and turned him around, or if he was trying to get down the racetrack to avoid wherever Stolnick was going. But they're going to penalize Raja Karuth, and they're going to hold him for a lap for causing this caution flag.
And that is because it is the second time in this race that Karuth has been deemed responsible for an incident. They have pinned that on the 44 truck, and now he's going to have to get his lap back. Never mind the fact that he's out of fast repairs. I don't know how much damage he's got, but he's going to have to come down pit road, be held on the lap. Now it's half a race to make that happen as we go down to pit road for pit stops with Taylor Burris.
Field making their way down into pit road here. We're going to see who's going to be able to come out on top with these pit stops here, but looking over at a couple of cars who are making their way in. A couple of trucks have made it to their pit box, such as, of course, Colin Fern, Matt Stolnick, and Steve Affont. Here comes Matt Stolnick into his pit stop as we're going to take a look to see up towards the front of the field. Garrett Smithley has made it to his pit box. Keep an eye on him. He had the fastest pit stop last time we were down here on pit road. And as they are starting to get released, we see David Shieldhouse is going to be the first one released. Next up will be Colin Fern, then Garrett Smithley, and then we see Will Rogers and Ryan Vargas round out your top five. Colin Fern and Will Rogers, fastest pit stops in this one, 13.9. But our first two tire stops have happened. James Bickford and Shane Van Gisbergen have decided to take two tires this go-round.
So now that we have everybody off of pit road, and looks like we're going to get a pretty solid reset on pit strategy and the lineup as they come across the line, let's now try and take our iRacing Midway Race Break, which is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the world of outlaws, and more. David Shieldhouse, your leader, ahead of Colin Fern. Will Rogers holds the third position. Ryan Vargas is fourth. Anthony Alfredo runs in the fifth position. Sixth at the moment belongs to Max Kennan. DJ Cummings holds seventh. Josh Slate runs in eighth. James Bickford in the ninth spot for Charlotte Phoenix. And Robbie Lyons, your defending series champion, has the last spot in the top 10.
Matt Stolnick started 23rd tonight from Iowa. He's currently 11th at the halfway break. Preston Partis currently sits behind him in the 42 truck in P12. 13th currently will belong to the Toyota Tundra of Brian Boris Cook, followed by Traxxon.GG's Justin Melillo in 14th. Gary Sexton in the Battle Beaver Tundra rounds out your current top 15 here on the racetrack. Steve Alfon, who was the second truck involved in a recent incident with Gabe Wood, he is currently 16th. 17th currently resides the 99 of Mark Rabillas. 18th to the 84 of Case Collimack. Seth Egger is currently 19th, and Arizona's Devin Henry in the 77 rounds out the top 20. Jacob.
Brad Perez sits in 21st with Brett Baldeck in 22nd. Shane Van Ginsbergen sits in P23 right now. He's struggling. Actually, I think he just pitted again because he's fallen down through the order. Nonetheless, Gabe Wood will be in P24 after that vicious crash. Then Michael Massey in P25. Mike Clay in 26th. Adam Cabot, playoff driver. He has run into some issues tonight. He's back in 27th. Then it's Garrett Smithley, Ford Martin, Garrett Miller, Brandon Brown and Raja Karuth, those two are a lap down. Brandon Brown currently would be eligible for the free pass. Both of them started inside the top 6. They're in the back of the field now.
And that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. With over 200,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com as we go back to the Big Green Egg Green Flag and the Sim Seats Challenge. David Schildhouse with another strong restart, and Colin Fern with work to do because he's got Will Rogers charging up the inside. Can Fern carry the momentum off the corner? Not quite yet. They'll be door-to-door down the backstretch.
I think that was arguably the best restart all night long for Schildhouse in the 20. Got off to a huge getaway off the blocks, and now Rogers and Fern continue to go door to door. This may indeed reel in fellow red banner truck of Ryan Vargas. Going to back off here in turns 1. Wait to see what happens. Fern's officially going to clear on that second lane. And what a drive it's been for playoff driver Colin Fern. From the mid portion of the field all the way to the very front, the playoff driver has an opportunity to take the lead away. Look at it, plus 14 since to drop the green flag.
This has been an incredible drive from Colin Fern. We've not said his name much yet in this sense in the broadcast, but that's not to say we haven't been watching him. I've kept my eye on him since about lap 20 or so. That's when I really started to notice his ability to charge through the field. Right now, he is one of the hardest chargers in this race, and amongst those who have made significant gains, Colin Fern might be the one that has the pace to hang with David Schildhouse as he goes right to the inside of the TobyChristie.com Chevrolet Silverado and move the technical director for Brandon Built Motorsports, Colin Fern, out of Norwich, New York, to the race lead on lap 78 of 135.
We've got a restart violation here, James, that has championship implications. Max Kennan has been given a black flag for a restart violation as Colin Fern gets sideways out in front as your race leader. He hangs on with, but that's going to bring Schildhouse right back to the back bumper. I was going to mention that Colin Fern, I feel like he kind of limped into the playoffs a little bit, into this second round a little bit. We haven't really heard much from him. But I think this is going to be a statement tonight if you can come away with the win and lock himself into the championship 4.
We know he's got speed. Very few drivers have been able to pick off trucks, one by one, as we can't confirm Max Kennan's coming down pit road to serve his penalty. Here's Josh Slate a little bit further back in this race, currently in the 9th spot, just behind Boris Cook, who has had a solid run himself, and you can say that about a lot of the drivers in the back half of the top 10, as a matter of fact. Look at some of these drivers where they started. Robbie Lyons, currently 7th, started in 17th. Boris Cook started 21st, currently up to 8th. Josh Slate started 19th, currently up to 9th. And Matt Stolnick started 19th, currently up to 10th. Let's also not forget Mark Rabillas, who's currently in 13th, started in 24th. So track position didn't necessarily mean near as much as you might have thought as we go on board with Gabe Wood, currently in 15th, trying to take away 14th from Brad Perez.
And it's helped so far that the cautions brought the field together. The pit strategy has definitely helped some drivers as well. So it's been sort of a move through the field, but you can't count out sort of the raw speed that many of the competitors have had tonight. DJ Cummings being one of them as he works to the inside of Alfredo. Still yet to clear out of turn 2. Robbie Lyons also being one of them. Remember, he went to victory lane the last time we raced the trucks a while back ago at the Homestead of Miami Speedway. He has a lot of success in this car, to say the least, as he currently rides just a 3rd train line here of this trio at the moment with Ryan Boris Cook. But definitely in this second half of the race, these drivers that started around the midfield, the drivers started near the rear, they're starting to turn it up. And it's definitely been a good way for them to keep it clean and maybe get some momentum, especially for the non-playoff competitors just looking for Season 5 and just hoping that they can at least ramp a positive spark up here in the final races of this season and be able to get to the opening race of Season 5 with a lot of momentum on their side.
Max Cannon is buried in 30th, and this would be a killer, I think, not only for him, but for Raja Karuth as well. Those two have to find a way to get back on the lead lap if they want any shot whatsoever to try and race their way into the championship four and not have to be in a must-win situation when we head to Nashville with the super late models for our penultimate race of the season next week. There's all sorts of action happening around Raja Karuth, and the problem for Raja is that it's a mixture of lap-down cars and cars racing for position. You've got Garrett Smithley to his outside as I think they bounced off each other and made contact there for just a moment, and Brad Perez is up there too. So Karuth's not only got to navigate the lap traffic, he's got to make sure he's not in the way of the drivers who are racing for position on the lead lap as well.
Yeah, and I mean, there are only three trucks that are a lap down at this point. Kennan, Raja, and Brandon Brown. So those three are racing for the lucky dog. Kennan came out toward the front of the field after his restart violation penalty, so he's in the free pass spot. Raja Karuth has to chase him down. I don't know if Raja is going to be able to get there. We know he's fast, but he's got to be careful without cooking that right front tire a little bit on that 44. So we'll just have to wait and see, but Raja pretty much in the thick of it right now back there.
Indeed, Will Rogers still running in third. You've got three playoff drivers in the top three, then Ryan Vargas, then DJ Cummings, then Anthony Alfredo. A fun mix of folks at the front and lots of action to go for. Ryan Vargas in the mix too. Anthony Alfredo, I think, might be the highest running of the non-playoff drivers at this stage. And how about Boris Cook? We really do need to give a shot to Boris Cook too, because he has not had luck this season, has not had anything go his way. This is by far the best performance of the season for the driver from Joe Gibbs Racing.
Yeah, it definitely is, and as he works behind the fellow truck right in front of him of Anthony Alfredo, Boris Cook definitely has had ups and downs. I can recall him being in contact with certain crashes, but there's been runs that we've just seen him do well, and then the pieces just don't align in the right way, and we don't end up seeing him at the front of the field. But we've got a battle at the front of the field for the race lead. Shieldhouse tried looking underneath Colin Fern and got way loose underneath that at turn 4, going to the start-finish line, allowed Will Rogers in the 24 to take headway into P2, and now could look at defending. He's going to try and chop him off there in a turn 3. Not going to be able to dig in the noses, Shieldhouse is, but Rogers gets up to the inside, barely, a bit of a clear off of turn 4. This is a great battle for the lead, and guess what, James? This is bringing in Ryan Vargas in P4.
The operative idea here is to do the opposite of limbo. It's not how low you can go on the racetrack. I think it's how high you can get a run off of the corner, because we saw what happened to Shieldhouse. He tried to duck down to the inside, and he couldn't make it stick. Same thing for Will Rogers, who's going to the apron and not making it stick. They're just going to have to stick behind Will Rogers, and Ryan Vargas is catching these drivers all the while, as we remind you that tonight's broadcast of the Monday Night Racing Pro Series is brought to you by our friends at Rowdy Energy. Two-time Cup Series champion Kyle Busch and beverage entrepreneur Jeff Church have collaborated to develop Rowdy Energy with a proprietary enhanced energy formula consisting of time-release caffeine, sugar reduction ingredients, amazing taste, and hydration levels above the leading sports drinks. Rowdy Energy is a cleaner, smarter energy drink, and you can visit rowdyenergy.com to place your order today and text M&R to the number you see on your screen to receive 15% off of your first order at rowdyenergy.com. They just can't get around Colin Fern no matter how much they get to the inside. They're trying as best they can, but Fern's just able to get enough momentum on the high line to keep Shieldhouse and Rogers at bay. The question is for how much longer can he pull that off, as that was a deep send from Will Rogers, who's going to try and slide up the racetrack and slide in front of Colin Fern, who didn't get the greatest of runs out of the corner, so this might not be over for the lead just yet.
Will Rogers sent it down into turn number 1, and he almost had the slide job pulled there. He's still going to be side by side at the stripe. In fact, he's going to beat Fern at the stripe. Schildhouse will stay to the outside line behind Colin Fern. We'll see if Rogers can try and clear him off turn 2. Not quite. Colin Fern's going to hang in there. Will Rogers, though, is giving Colin Fern everything he's got.
How much more could you ask of Monday Night Racing at this point? You've got 3, 4, all sorts of action here, and 4 drivers in the championship 4 who are, or rather, competing for a spot in the championship 4 in the round of 7 now. But any one of these front 4 drivers could win this race and lock themselves in to be fighting for title live at the Carolina eSports Hub in Charlotte, North Carolina in a few weeks' time.
And obviously, winning is going to matter the most here in this championship hunt, because it's going to lock you immediately into the race at Auto Club in a couple of weeks' time. But for Rogers, he came into this race 5th in the point standings. He is just outside of the cutoff going into tonight's event here at Iowa, just 1 point shy of the driver 2 spots behind him right now in Ryan Vargas. So as much as Rogers would look for the race win, much like all the other Red Banner trucks are doing right now, to get into the championship 4, that 24 is just looking to make a statement in points. If he can't get the win tonight, at least he can beat Vargas, and at least for the most part he can beat that cut line going into next week in Nashville Super Speedway and be able to build on that. That's how he's been so aggressive for the moment. He's going to fall off though on the inside lane because Schildhouse found the way to get to the outside. Fern was officially able to clear to get back to the race lead, and so Rogers will have to hit the reset button and try something different coming to 37 laps to go.
As it stands, live point standings, Will Rogers and Ryan Vargas would be dead even for that last spot in the championship 4 heading to Nashville next week. It would be heads up between those two to try and figure out who may claim the last spot on points, unless Max Kennedy and Raja Karuth can win their way in, which at this point, laps down that they both are, it is becoming increasingly likely that a win will be the only way for either one of Kennedy or Karuth to make the championship 4. Everybody up here, though, still has a shot to make it on points, and David Schildhouse might be figuring out that inside just a little bit better as he continues to fight Colin Fern and keep him just on his toes. As Schildhouse might be able to make the pass out of the corner, slides up in front of Colin Fern, but Fern will answer and duck right down back to the bottom of turn 1.
Slide job out of David Schildhouse. Here comes another slider from Colin Fern. He can't hold the bottom. Schildhouse with the run on the high side. He's going to hang back on the lead, and I think what happened with Will Rogers is he just got those tires a little too warm. He has to back off, kind of cool those tires off a little bit. I think Colin Fern's going to have to do the same thing after trying to send it down into turn number 1. But this race, I don't know about you guys, it's almost reminding me of that 2014 Spring Richmond race between Matt Kenseth, Brad Keselowski, Jeff Gordon, and Joey Logano, where the 4 of them fighting for the lead, dirt tracking it around the racetrack, loose as can be, making contact. That's what this is reminding me of, and these last 35 laps are going to be wild.
And the most impressive thing to me about what Schildhouse was able to do, got that pass done on the inside, which is so tough to do when the tires are worn out on a long green flag run. It is very difficult to make passes from the inside, far easier to do them from up top, but Schildhouse found a way to keep the pressure on Fern lap after lap after lap after lap, and now not only does he have the lead, but last time by, he was 2/10 quicker than Colin Fern, and I'm beginning to wonder whether or not the Brandon-built Motorsports truck has burnt his tires off a little bit too early. May need to cool them down a bit, but Schildhouse was a full 10th up, on Colin Fern last time by.
That could have been the case there, indeed, James, with Fern. He may have burned his truck up a little bit too much as Rogers is going to try to look to the inside and maybe gain some ground out of turn 4. But just a testament to how patient Schildhouse was. Remember, he's controlled a good amount of this race coming in now, the final 30 laps of the SimSeeds Challenge. But as much as Rogers and Fern challenged him for the lead, as much as he's been side by side, Schildhouse never lost his composure. He never lost the patience and said, okay, if you're going to pass me, I'll get you back sooner than later. And look what he did. Got back to the race lead and did so in very interesting fashion as Adam Cabot is in a kind of a rough battle of his own, not necessarily pristine on his Chevy Silverado, but like I said with Schildhouse, just the patience on his truck, the patience behind the mind and behind the wheel of that Chevy Silverado, definitely getting the best of everybody right now. He's got the upper hand in the final couple laps.
Of note, Preston Pardus has come down pit road for stops, so he's coming in early. This, I think, is a strategy play. Taylor Burris, you might be able to clue us in a little bit more, but I think if you're Pardus, you're pitting with the assumption that this race goes green the rest of the way and trying to take advantage of the undercut.
It certainly is going to be the looks of that situation as he's coming down pit road. A couple of other trucks have decided to come down pit road as well. Shane Van Gisbergen has just completed his pit stop. We may be seeing more trucks, but this is the catch-22 with this situation. They could come down pit road and may have the opportunity to leapfrog some of these competitors with the fresh tires, but it has to stay green between now and when the checkered flag falls. Mike Clay just comes down pit road now. We'll see if any of other front runners decide to do that as we go back to the battle for P4.
Here's Gary Sexton fighting for 12th now. These numbers are going to flip just a little bit as we see the drivers come down pit road, but it's an interesting position in particular, I think, for David Schildhaus, who has the ability to sit and wait if need be, because remember, if we get any sort of yellow flag within this stretch and he's the leader, it's advantage to him and anyone else that stayed out on the racetrack before the yellow flag came out. So this is very much a pick your poison situation here. Do you come in for fresh tires, or do you try and hold out and hope that we get a yellow flag?
I think David Schildhaus may have thought about pitting that last time by, but I have a theory. We saw Schildhaus battle Fern for a little bit and then really back off, and that opened the door for Will Rogers to get up there. I'm kind of wondering if Schildhaus saved his stuff so that way once Will Rogers burned up his tires and slid out of the way, he would be able to leapfrog Colin Fern and take the lead. But if I'm one of these leaders right now, I'm not too worried about when I pit. As Ryan Vargas, he's going to come in this time, it looks like. Ryan Vargas on pit road. I'm wondering with these guys if they should be more worried about the folks that just pitted that are going about 10 mile an hour faster, because David Schildhaus had Shane Van Gisbergen and James Bickford fly by him while he was leading this thing.
Shane Van Gisbergen, Shane Van Gisbergen, Shane Van Gisbergen, Shane Van Gisbergen. Yeah, I can do it. I can do it. Why not you?
Here comes Will Rogers. Here comes Will Rogers. He's on pit road.
Yes, as more of the race leaders are coming down pit road. Ryan Vargas in last time by. Here comes Will Rogers this time by. Colin Fern and David Schildhaus have stayed out. They've got 40 laps on their tires, and we'll see whether or not they decide to enter pit road for what presumably would be their last pit stop when they come around. Here comes David Schildhaus off the banking. Colin Fern stays out, so Schildhaus has made his call. Fern will either need to answer on the next lap, or it is his gamble to try and stay out and get a yellow flag. Let's see what happens. We'll go back down to Taylor Burris for more.
David Schildhaus making his way down pit road. Has to be the most grueling thing for him right now as he is trying to pace his way, not get the speeding penalty, and enter into his box without oversliding into it. He will make it in as Ryan Vargas gets black flag for his drive-through penalty. As we will see if Colin Fern will respond. Not this time around. Schildhaus still on pit road trying to complete the spot. They'll go around. Joshua Slate's now down on pit road as Schildhaus completes the stop, 14.3. One of his slowest stops of the night. Keep an eye and see if that will be difficult for him to overcome as he's going to come out in 20th.
And Colin Fern has decided not to answer the pit stop from anybody, so this is Fern's gamble to try and stay out on the old tires and either get a yellow flag or keep everybody else behind him to try and win this race. I'm guessing he didn't feel like he had the pace to beat a Schildhaus or Rogers or anybody else by going heads up with them on strategy. So this is the roll of the dice for Colin Fern. This is his call that may well get him a championship 4 ticket if it pans out in his favor.
You're going to have to wonder here, James, if right now this 86 truck is looking for a caution between lap trucks and lead lap trucks as well, as he made a chatter over the radio. He's going to the outside of the 07 of Ford Martin, but a caution comes out. This could be exactly what Fern was looking for, and I believe it was the 13. It was Gary Sexton who got loose out of turn 4, got into Adam Cabot, and as Fern had made the gamble, he was hoping for this, and it happened.
I have to believe Colin Fern is celebrating in his seat right now like he just won the Daytona 500, because this is exactly how he wanted this to play out, and it is now a huge strategy advantage in his favor as we enter the final 20 laps of this race. It's just hard racing there between Cabot and Sexton for position, and contact eventually brings out the yellow flag. But what a huge huge gift for Colin Ferd, especially with a spot in the championship 4 on the line. He'll come down pit road, but he'll be the only one to come down pit road as we clear the Tufco pouring 20 to go in this SimSeats Challenge, though he will be followed actually by a few other drivers, and that means we'll turn it back over to Taylor Burris for more.
Talk about a big sigh of relief for Colin Ferd. He's just going to cruise his way down pit road, get into his box. The crew will get to work on it, putting 4 tires in fuel, and get back out onto the track. And as they work their way through the rest of the field, also DJ Cummings, Garrett Smithley, all those who did not pit during that situation, green flag. Here comes Colin Ferd off of pit road. As he works his way around, he will win this race off of pit road. Garrett Smithley trying to also see if he can beat him off, but that will not happen. Colin Ferd, 15-second stop. He took his sweet time with this pit stop, and now will hold on to the race lead. But Anthony Alfredo will be starting in second by the looks of things.
Gonna have a lot of drivers taking the wave around here to try and figure this one out, but a lot of folks now gonna be stuck behind Colin Ferd, who has the freshest rubber in the field. Anyone that stayed out and guessed yellow flag, big. Did I mention big time win? Because that's a big moment. I cannot underscore how important that was for Ferd and everybody else.
Well, and that also helps some of these folks that were a lap down. Remember Raja Caruth? He got the free pass. He's back on the lead lap. All of those guys that just pitted that were a lap down, with the exception of Ryan Vargas, that's going to put most of them back on the lead lap. Vargas lost 4 laps with his pit road penalty. He is now just 2 laps down, so he still needs a lot of help in order to get back on a lead lap. There are 5 people that are 1 lap down: Brian Boris Cook, Garrett Miller, Michael Massey, Ford, and Case Kallenbach, that are ahead of Ryan Vargas right now. Vargas is going to need 7 or 8 more cautions in order to get back on the lead lap.
Hits, we'll keep it right on you here. Let's bring in Ford Martin, our Fox Sports App in-race reporter, one more time, and Jacob will let you have at it and have some fun.
So, Ford, last time we talked to you, were in P11. This time around, you're toward the back of the field, you're a lap down. The truck's a little more beat up since we last talked to you.
Not the greatest thing right here. Not the greatest thing. I'm trying to get my last wave. They haven't gave it to me yet, so not so good so far, but we're trying to figure it out. I got 20 different people talking to me at the same time, but not definitely what we wanted, but I think we're going to be okay here. We got a caution. A couple of my crypto teammates are going to be okay, so that's all that matters, and making sure everyone's going to be, make sure those guys are going to be okay. So we'll see what happens here.
So you're going to get your wave around right here, going by the leaders. That'll get you back on the lead lap.
Yep.
Is the plan just to send it here on these last 15 laps and get every spot you can?
The plan is, as an owner, I've told these guys we need to clean the races up and not have many instances. I can't be that guy running up through the field and do that. So I think it's more of a wait and see. It's hard to pass here, so we'll just kind of ride, see what happens, and hopefully this Fox Sports app, Chevy, can get through it all.
Best of luck, Ford.
Thanks, guys.
Ford Martin again, our Fox Sports app in-race reporter. Back on the lead lap, he will restart in the 25th position as we are extending the caution flag to try and sort out this wave around stuff that I think has stumped our admin a little bit here, Josh Mendoza, and perhaps some of the drivers that are a lap down that want to get back on the lead lap.
Yeah, big break for Colin Ferd, big break for Raja Caruth, big break for Max Kennan, all of whom actually have fresher tires than the folks who were in the lead of this thing. And you feel for people like David Schildhouse, you feel for people like Will Rogers, who have old tires, had to get the wave around, and are now buried in traffic. And now they are going to be the ones that have to try and fight through this field. Never mind the fact, on top of all of that, Kenneth Bueno, that Ford, I think, hinted at it a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and stretch it out a little bit more. Races like these, you get a yellow within 15 laps to go. I have a feeling we're probably not done with cautions. We may be running bursts of short green flag runs to finish off the SimSeats Challenge.
And we might end up in green-white checkered territory, the fabled tale of stock car racing, as we usually see it on the real-life side and on the sim side. But I figure, especially with the way many of these drivers are looking for wins, looking for stakes in momentum or stakes in the playoffs, they're going to be trying their best to dive deep into turn one and make sure that it can hopefully work for them. If it doesn't, we'll have to find out. But we have one playoff driver very well in the front of the field by a large margin with the freshest tires in the field, looking to hold all the other non-playoff competitors off to lock into the championship four. We'll see if it holds.
Another extension here. I have a feeling race control Josh Mendoza is probably not happy with this field. It's a tricky situation. It's a bit of a nightmare for race control. It's the one case you don't want to have to deal with the yellow flag in what was effectively the dead center of the cycle of pit stops, no question. So more work needed to be done on this, and we're going to take a moment to remind you that our broadcast of the Monday Night Racing Pro Series is presented by our friends over at BOOSTED.BIZ. Boosted builds a custom platform for your brand to sell your products. They take care of everything, so pay nothing up front and let them handle the rest. To get started with your online store, visit boosted.biz today. Tonight's broadcast also brought to you by our friends at Battle Beaver, who has everything you need for your next custom controller, console, or PC skin. With options for PlayStation, Xbox, GameCube, and more, Battle Beaver has everything you need to make your system look exactly the way you want it. You can head to BattleBeaverCustoms.com to pick up your next skin today. Everybody single file. Lights are off on the pace truck. Whether or not we go green flag racing, I quite frankly am not totally certain, and I suspect we may see everyone come down pit road to stop and get this thing sorted out properly. So the pace truck comes in. Officially, we're going to be green flag racing, but this is going to be a controlled restart from race control. So even though the sim will think we're under green, we're going to stop everyone on pit road, get this field sorted out, make sure we don't lose any more laps here, and then we're going to go back racing. So while we have a moment, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. More coverage from the Sim Seats Challenge here from the virtual Iowa Speedway and Podium eSports just after this.
February 7th, 2022. Sim racing history will be made and a champion will be crowned. For the first time in sim racing history, the Rowdy Energy Monday Night Racing Pro Series Championship will take place live and in person at the Carolina eSports Hub, located in the heart of downtown Charlotte. Experience the thrill of sim racing like you've never experienced it before, as the Monday Night Racing Championship 4 drivers do battle on stage, including guest appearances by other Monday Night Racing and real-life drivers competing live.
Hey everybody, Kyle Busch here. Be sure to grab your tickets for the Monday Night Racing presented by Rowdy Energy Championship Night on February 7th. Grab them today.
Howdy, I'm Ashley, and this is my partner Frankie. There's no better time than right now to purchase a home or refinance your current mortgage. My company, Wyndham Capital, has amazing rates and a seamless process to get your loan across the finish line. Give me a shout for all of your mortgage needs.
When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Maconi Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flag Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at Maconi Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, Maconi Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to MaconiSetupShop.com and learn why Maconi Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing. And remember, at Maconi Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Everything I see, live large, no apology. Take charge, no one can compete. I just do what comes natural.
February 7th, 2022. Sim racing history will be made and a champion will be crowned. For the first time in sim racing history, the Rowdy Energy Monday Night Racing Pro Series Championship will take place live and in person at the Carolina eSports Hub, located in the heart of downtown Charlotte. Experience the thrill of sim racing like you've never experienced it before, as the Monday Night Racing Championship 4 drivers do battle on stage, including guest appearances by other Monday Night Racing and real-life drivers competing live.
Hey everybody, Kyle Busch here. Be sure to grab your tickets for the Monday Night Racing presented by Rowdy Energy Championship Night on February 7th. Grab them today.
Welcome back to coverage of the SimSeats Challenge for the Monday Night Racing Pro Series presented by Rowdy Energy here on iRacing. Our drivers are having a little bit of fun. It's the first red flag, I think, in the history of Monday Night Racing. We're just trying to sort out scoring over a yellow flag that came out during the middle of a green flag pit cycle. So it's a bit tricky for race control. They needed extra time, so no worry, no major issues per se, just a scoring issue that we need to get through. But for those of you who might remember a certain tweet from Brad Keselowski that, if you can believe it, turns 10 years old next month. How wild is that? But
what?
The first in-car tweet that we had during the Daytona 500, there are, shall we say, a few shades of that from our drivers of Monday Night Racing. We'll get a look here at Max Kinnon's first, who did a really nice job, I think, aping Brad Keselowski. You saw what Kes had, and here's what Max Kinnon had in just a few moments. It's we could say it's pretty close. It's certainly right up there. We'll just get a moment here and see if we can flip through these images and get them up. But in either case, Jacob, it's a lot of fun seeing drivers take after real life and sort of put their own twist on it Monday Night Racing style.
And they're using Brad Keselowski as their own interpretation, their own, I don't know what word I'm looking for anymore. Inspiration, I guess, is what I was trying to go for. But they got to pass the time somehow. It's unprecedented that we have something like this come up. But I think that just shows that it can happen anywhere. It can happen in the real world with the scoring era. I look back at 1990 at North Wilkesboro, where they ran like 40 laps of caution flag. Here, we at least just pull them on the pit road, park it, we'll figure it out, get everybody together and in order, instead of just logging laps and making this a 2-lap dash since we're so close to the end, in a playoff race, of course.
See if we can't get that tweet out there. There it is. There's Max Kinnon. So, yeah, get it. He got it pretty close. It's not quite fire, but that's just about character for character, right on with what Keselowski said.
It's perfect. I mean, when they were coming down pit road and we were trying to get this all sorted, at first, since there was pacing and we didn't know the red flag was going to come out, I thought it was kind of similar to real life NASCAR, where they would go down pit road on the pace lap and then go back on track to continue the race. But then as soon as they stopped, I thought of that tweet from Keselowski. Kennan doing a great job of doing that. Unfortunately, Kennan, with the things that he's gone through today, especially with the restart violation, hasn't been the greatest race, but hopefully when he restarts 13th, when we get things started here in this SimSeats Challenge, he can get up to the field. I love this, though. This is content. The drivers are getting into it, and even out of a very difficult situation for race control, the drivers are having fun. Look at Justin Malillo with his view.
Justin Malillo out here. He's I can't tell if he's focused or he's angry or he's frustrated or he's happy that Dave Gettleman's no longer the general manager of a certain hand-ag team that he loves, or, you know, all the above. We can go in a lot of different directions with that, Jacob Hinton. I know you as a a group of teams that starts with N in an easterly direction section of said league. Person. It's a pretty good way to get around a lot of legalese, right? You probably can sympathize for them at least a little bit, maybe, or am I taking it a bridge too far?
I have no idea what you're talking about, James, to be
fair.
completely
Okay,
honest.
good. So I legally so well that you couldn't even piece it together. That's fine. Here's Gary Sexton's view of the red flag, the first in sim racing history. I don't know if that's quite true, but certainly the first that I can recall in Monday Night Racing history, all the way back to at least the beginning of season 2 when we took over the broadcast here on Podium. Not seen an incident like this. We'll see if any more tweets come in. I think Devin Hendry might have had one. We'll see if we can get him up on air because his was pretty good all the same. But everybody chiming in. But yeah, Jacob, it's a wild one out there.
And Devin just put something in our broadcast chat. He says that they're going to start timing porta potty stops for everybody here if this keeps going on much longer.
See,
reminiscent of Brad and Dale Jr.
No, you say that. I worked the North-South shootout at Caraway Speedway for our good friends at Pit Road TV back in November. We had a red flag for a wreck cleanup that was long enough that we literally saw drivers from the tower, mind you no less, saw them get out of their cars, go to the bathroom in the infield, handle their business, and then come back out and get themselves strapped back in ready to go. That happened.
You know what? You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if right now drivers are ordering food to their houses. If they're a little bit hungry during the race, they can order
DoorDash, the official partner of NASCAR, something like that.
Yeah, or whatever. I never know. At this point, with this intermission that which we've never seen before, at least I've never seen before in sim racing history, they could be on the way to ordering food and just trying to have fun. I mean, they can't leave their cars, so they have to make time somehow.
Yeah, it would be a lot of fun here. But while these drivers sit on pit road, we now have a lot of good time within the middle of this race towards the end to really sit down and talk about the Monday Night Racing Championship event. You've seen the promo run a few times already. If you're watching the broadcast, have been watching from the very beginning, but genuinely here, I'd like to think I've been around the iRacing scene for a while. When we first got word of this event, it potentially being a thing, even, I immediately recognized that this was going to be something really, really special because you think of the times we've had in-person events in iRacing, and we've had live events where people are competing physically right next to one another. I think of the Sim Racing Expo with our friends at Race Spot over in Germany at the Nürburgring. I think there were a handful of events in Las Vegas. There was the Red Bull event that took place in December up in Canada. Our good friend Justin Prince hosted that. And beyond that, not really too many other events, Kenneth, that have been done live and in person. And that, above anything else, is what makes it so special. This is ground that even the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series has not broken. Not once in the history of that competition have they had an in-person event. The closest thing we've had, probably Logan Clampett and Michael Conti racing next to each other in the same room, but they've never had the whole field competing in the same location. And even though we won't have all the drivers competing in the Carolina Esports Hub on Monday night, February 7th, the championship four are going to be there. Selected other drivers are going to be there. By my count, it should be somewhere in the ballpark of at least a quarter of the field competing live in front of you in person. This is going to be something really, really special, not just for Monday Night Racing, but for the iRacing community as a whole.
Yeah, it is entirely going to be a very unique event. And remember in the promo, if a lot of you on Twitter saw it earlier today at our 2 p.m. announcement of this event, it said sim racing history will be made. That statement is not sugar-coated. That is a real statement, raw, and it's going to be true. It's going to be held true when we get to the Carolina Esports Hub on February 7th. I'm excited for it. I know the drivers are excited for it. Everybody at Monday Night Racing is excited for this event to happen. And to see the drivers in person, you get to have a feel about how those drivers are in a sim racing situation. Of course, all of them are usually at home. They're usually in certain places where they can set up a rig. But when you've got a majority of the field going to be there, including the championship four, you're going to see the humanity of the drivers. You're going to see the reactions from them live in person, and we're going to have it all at the Carolina Esports Hub. I'm so excited. I'm hyped for it. I can't wait to build up more hype for it, and it's just going to be a great time when we crown a champion in what's been an iconic season 4 already.
Jacob Hitz, I think it's not an understatement to say that this may be one of the biggest races for iRacing maybe even since the Replacements 100 in March of 2020 that inspired the Pro Invitational Series. This has the ability to have that kind of landmark effect, not just for this league, but for iRacing and the sim racing community as a whole. It's the first time Charlotte's really had a chance to hold a major in-person sim racing event in a long time, and certainly on this level, and something that could go down in history. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
I certainly think that this may even be bigger than what we saw back in March of 2020 with the Replacements 100. That was certainly unprecedented and different, and of course that inspired a lot. I think this could be even bigger, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to see how it's all going to come together. In the end, we're going to crown a champion that night, just to kind of bring everything to a close, and I don't think there's a better way to end the season than doing something big in person, going out with a bang.
Bang is, I think, very much short selling it at this stage. Never mind the fact there are going to be so many people in attendance in positions of power that we can't really tell you about just yet. Got to keep some things under wraps. But for those who are watching on the Podium 2 Twitch channel, or the Podium Facebook page, or the Podium YouTube page, the link in chat that was just provided, that takes you to the page that allows you to buy tickets to the Monday Night Racing Championship on February 7th. So if you want to join us there and see all of this happen in person and in front of your face, click the link, buy your tickets, join us just outside of Uptown Charlotte, North Carolina, and who knows, you might find a certain foolish person who likes to talk on a microphone too much, maybe giving you questionable food advice and restaurant advice if you really want it. I'm certainly there. I could go for a good schnitzel at the end of the day. That's a fun one, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, why not? I think it'll be fun for all of us when we get there and we try to unpack the whole event itself and how it's going to be, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Also, I think I've gotten word from the track. I think some of the sim racing drivers right now are actually playing football with the fans in the grandstands. I think that may be happening right now. They've got a lot of downtime with this red flag. They've got all the engines turned off, so nobody's wasting fuel, nobody's wasting anything with their trucks. So I mean, hey, they're trying to make the best out of it. It's a lot of fun. This is the first for M&R. It's the first for me, so.
Well, remember, you got to be careful. Can't call it football. Got to call it hand egg unless you're talking about the football that you kick in Europe.
Oh, you're right. Well, what if they did play the football you can kick? Can they kick it over the fence? Is that possible?
Oh, that
you have to tip it really high.
Yeah, no, you get a good long boot in like a goalkeeper does. That's an easy one. If they can boot it, halfway along the field at 30, 40 feet in the air, I think you can clear that fence pretty easy. So, just in case you all are joining us here and you're wondering why the trucks are stopped, we had a yellow flag come out dead center of a pit road cycle with about 20 laps to go. Currently sitting on lap number 124 of 135. And race control has taken it upon itself to red flag this race, make sure everybody scored correctly, and make sure that everybody's in the right position for what will be a critical about 10 lap dash to the finish, which could potentially determine one of our championship 4 drivers. Remember that Colin Fern, who is your leader, is in with the shout, in with the shot. Max Kennan is in with the shout, in with the shot. You've got a whole bunch of people trying to run from the back too. David Schildhaus, who got caught on the bad side of the break and came down pit road before the yellow flag came out. He's trying to race his way through the field to get a shot at this. Will Rogers is also in the mix. So, lots of storylines to talk about here, but as I look at this, I haven't really had the chance to just really glance at it too much yet, but looking at the point standings, looking at where everybody shook out, we knew that Colin Fern was a big-time winner of this. I think you could almost make the case that Max Kennan and Raja Karuth were the other big winners here because they were completely out to lunch, running in 30th, 31st, and 32nd, and potentially we're in a must-win situation in order to make it into the Championship 4. Now, Roger scored in 15th, Max has scored in 13th, David Schildhaus and Will Rogers are almost 10 spots back of them both, and it could be those two that may be in the must-win positions when we get to Nashville next week.
Good news. We're getting somewhere. Our race control, Josh Mendoza, is he just finished reading off the lineup for all the drivers to get everybody settled. They're eventually going to line them up, and I'm assuming that this will mean we're going to have 11 to go on the restart. The scoreboard says 11 to go, but that's because James Bickford left, came back, had to tow. Scoring technically shows him as the leader because he had to tow, and he's just currently sitting on pit road. And I think he's going to have to sit there for a while. And now we've got drivers saying that the order that Josh read off isn't right, particularly Raja Karuth. He says that he's not in the right spot. But I have a feeling that nobody's going to be happy no matter what happens here, guys.
I suspect, but I figure, you know, with the amount of time that they took, race control really trying to line this up and get this right, so I'd be hard-pressed to believe that there would be nothing than double and triple checking on the back of this, and I would figure race control most likely has taken the time, especially with the extended delay that we've had, to really nail this down properly, given how important this restart is within the context of the season. Where everybody lines up, we'll find out. Where everybody goes could be interesting, but Kenneth Bueno, we've got some cars rolling on pit road. We've got a Justin Malillo with his Rowdy Energy just sitting cool, calm, and comfortable. And after the race he's had, I don't think he'll complain about being in the top 10 one bit.
Yeah, definitely won't. And I think it's going to mean a lot for a lot of non-playoff drivers, even before the green flag pit stop cycle around. Of course, Colin Fern, he was the race leader. We know how much of a buffer he has to the next playoff driver, who will, at this point, in timing and scoring at the moment right now, I believe is David Schildhaus back in P15. So it's a long ways between Fern and another playoff competitor. But for the non-playoff drivers, it's going to mean a lot after many of them have had up and down seasons. You talk about our defending champion, Robbie Lyons, was not able to repeat the success that he went through last campaign. So he's trying to gain some momentum going into season 5, and why not be able to do so by having a chance at the win tonight from Iowa. Same deal with DJ Cummings. Kind of got into the playoffs, but kind of got shuffled out of it. Garrett Smithley, we've seen him do well in the playoffs. He's not running for a championship this season, so he's going to be looking for a great run. Brad Perez, who has yet to reach victory lane since I believe his All-Star win back a while back. He's now in P6 with an opportunity to win. Matt Stallneck, Justin Malillo, Steve Alfont, Devin Henry, Seth Eggert. So many non-playoff drivers here, James, that have a possibility of winning here in the cornfield. It's going to mean a lot for them, even if Fern, let's say, doesn't get to victory lane. I think the story is still going to be set on a great comeback effort for any of the drivers behind him.
This could be fun, and you make a good point that there's so many drivers around Colin Fern that could potentially take away not only the win, but the guaranteed spot in the championship 4, because there really aren't too many playoff competitors around him. I think you have to go back to, I believe, Rogers, who, by my math, I think is going to be somewhere around, call it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so somewhere in the 14th to 16th ballpark. We don't have the opportunity to have scoring reset just yet. We'll need these cars to cross some timing lines in order to get to the right spots, but it sounds like Josh Mendoza may be releasing the hounds relatively shortly. If not, trying to catch these drivers up and also making sure that they understand what the restart procedure is going to be.
Could you imagine, after all of this, we get ready to go, we get the restart, and in turn 2, 5 cars crash, and we have to do this all over again, 5 trucks crash? Could you imagine? We waited all this time, we go off into the corner, and 6 trucks don't make it out the other side. That just reminds me, again, 2012 Daytona 500. You had the rain delay for a day and a half. You finally get the race started, and lap 2, somebody gets turned head on to the outside. Well, that Kyle Busch quote, are we all kidding ourselves? I'm feeling some drivers are going to be thinking that if they can't make it pretty much the rest of the way here under green.
So this now becomes very interesting, and another good point that you make that's sort of tangential to that, Jacob Hitz, everybody now on cold tires. Most everybody on fresh rubber for sure, although it varies within a few laps as the leaders finally get rolling, but everybody on cold tires, everybody with not a lot of grip. You think of Anthony Alfredo and Raja Karuth, who had issues coming off of turn 4 on the cold rubber earlier in this SimSeats challenge, and how treacherous it could be for the leaders. I believe Kenneth Bueno or Jacob Pitts, do you have a feel for the restart procedures? Anything you've heard from race control in particular?
I haven't heard anything just yet. They're trying to make sure they can at least get cars rolling to kind of sort out this order. Obviously, Josh Mendoza, like Jacob said, did actually recite the entire order as to what race control was going to be deeming first all the way through last here in the SimSeed Shout. So nothing right now, but I believe we should be getting to restart soon enough because they've got everybody doubled up, which means, at least for the most part, they've got everybody in line for the moment.
Okay, so they just threw the caution flag again. They're going to get him behind the pace car, follow the pace car for probably 2 laps, shorten the caution flag, and then let him go. I was kind of hoping they were just going to let him do it under green and just re-rack him, restack him, and then let him go when they got back around. But instead, they're going to wheel the pace car back out of the racetrack and get behind him, see how it lines everybody up, and they're just going to go for it here whenever they're able to shorten the caution flag. I think they have to do at least a lap behind the pace truck in order for them to shorten it. So this is going to make us, this is going to put us under 10 laps to go whenever we get this restart.
Although I will say, this is arguably Josh Mendoza's greatest work in race control, so as far as I'm concerned, because I've seen races, and I think we all have, where we've seen race control burn 20, 30 laps to try and figure out the order. In a situation like this, I am much more of a proponent of the idea of putting everybody under a red flag and stopping and going back and looking at video to make sure that you have the order right, to give these drivers as much green flag time as you possibly can to finish this race off. That's exactly what has happened. So a big hand to the man out of Sacramento, California, Josh Mendoza in race control, doing a stellar job this evening.
Yeah, definitely so, and I think that's the best decision. Stop it immediately when you don't know what's going on. Figure it out, try to put the pieces back together, and once you do, get them rolling. And especially in the fact, think about the pressure Mendoza is on right now. He's race control for the Monday Night Racing series, and now he's doing it in the playoffs, where this decision ultimately could affect where drivers end up in points by the time we get to Nashville next week. So by doing this, by stopping it and making sure we can get as many green flag laps as possible, and we can get the correct order, this could save a lot of the troubles that many of the playoff drivers could have if, let's say, the restart went awry, the positioning order went awry, if so many things went wrong. So definitely a hats off to Mendoza, and I believe 1 to green this time by, so we'll see if we'll be getting the green flag rather sooner than later here, coming to, I believe, 8 laps to go.
Lights are off on the pace truck indeed, so we're going to go green with 9 laps to go, or rather 8 laps to go when we hit the stripe. You're right. Good. Better mathematician than I am, Kenneth Bueno. No surprise. It's quite frankly not hard to do, but here's your running order, 1st through 10th. Fern, Lyons, Cummings, Smithley, Perez, Stolnick, Melillo, Affont, Henry, and Eggers. Then Baldock, Alfredo, Pardis, Schildhouse, Rogers, Rabillas, Kennan, Cabot, Slate, and Sexton. Raja Caruth back in 23rd, but a lot of your playoff contenders right around that 15th to 20th range, and I have no idea what to expect in the final handful of laps. Big green and green flag out now. Finally, Kellen Fern gets back on the gas pedal. We're back underway with a SimSeed challenge. Robbie Lyons just about got turned off the front of Garrett Smithley.
They were stacking up in the back of the pack, too. Oh, trouble! Max Cannon gets turned! He's around in front of the field! He's gonna save it! No, they're not! As around goes Brandon Brown. I called that they weren't gonna make it out of turn 2. There were 4 wrecks before the actual wreck. Anthony Alfredo got run over. Robbie Lyons almost got turned in front of the field. Max Cannon went around, and at the end of all of it, it was Brandon Brown that got turned around that I think brought out the caution. That was Cannon's off the pace truck in the middle of the field. But I think we talked about it at least. The tires ice cold on the restart. A lot of guys struggled to get back up through the gears, and in the end, this is the end result. And we made it half a lap, and the tires are going to be back to ice by the time we get the restart.
There are a lot of cases where it is appropriate to say what's cooler than being cool, ice cold. This is not one of those cases. You'd rather have a little bit of warmth in your tires, and that's not what a lot of these drivers have right now. So I'm not surprised, just because it's, especially when you're racing as hard as you are at the end of this thing, Kenneth, it's about impossible to hang on here.
Well, first of all, I'll say all right. But in the case of that, I mean, it's just a franticness. Everybody wants to finish this race. Everybody wants to go up to the front. Everybody wants to do it, and then, especially turn 1, you feel like that may be your only opportunity because the field will probably thin out in enough time, and it just brings everybody together. That's unfortunate there. I believe there with Brown did, of course, have an incident where he went around, but Kennan actually kind of got saved. It would have been a lot worse for him if he didn't get the second tap from Josh Slate, because going into one, Kenan was mostly clear. Alfredo was kind of the outside. All of a sudden there, Slate dives into turn one, goes to the bottom. Kenan does a good job of giving him room, but then the one kind of just slides up, gets into the quarter panel, and pretty much to a full 90-degree angle Kenan went before the second tap that set him straight. Nobody else was involved in the incident. But I mean, we talk about cold tires. We were probably anticipating it, and it's just a moment of bracing for impact, hoping it doesn't happen as bad as you would expect. Luckily, there are only about 2 cars, maybe with minor damage, but pretty much most of the field stays clean.
Also of note, race control no longer giving wave rounds to the rest of the field now that we're within the final 5 laps. They will only go to the lucky dog for the remainder of this race. That doesn't really apply all that much, save for Ryan Vargas, who is not 1 lap down, but 2 laps, or 1 lap down, but 2 laps down in 31st. He needs 2 yellows and then another green, white checker on top of it to have any chance of finishing higher than that, which could make things interesting all the while. As the lights are off the pace truck once again, green flag coming out with 4 laps to go. Fern, Cummings, Smithley, Lyons, Stallneck, pretty much the same order that we had before. Very little time for these drivers to make a charge. Man, you want to watch, as far as the playoffs are concerned, Will Rogers, currently in 10th, I believe. He is the second playoff driver as it stands behind Colin Ferd, who stands on the gas pedal, hits the big green egg, green flag under the stripe, and we're back underway in the Sim Seats Challenge. To the front goes Fern, trying to race his way into the championship.
They're wrecking again, James. Big crash. That's Cabot in the fence. 1 truck into the air. It's Ford Martin. Adam Cabot is upside down. A huge wreck in turn 1, another parking lot. Josh Slate was the first truck to get sideways, and it was calamity, a hellacious crash in turn number 1, and we, ladies and gentlemen, are going to overtime.
Green, white checker indeed. I think Slate was the first one contact off the front of Mark Rabillas, and that was a major, major hit there. Cabot got swept up in that. I quite frankly am amazed that David Schildhaus didn't get caught up in that. Ford Martin might have done the best job of trying to join the Podium eSports Space Administration we've seen throughout the whole of Season 4 of Monday Night Racing. Shane Van Gisbergen was caught up in that. Gary Sexton swept up in that too. A lot of trucks with a lot of damage, and Cabot, Kenneth Waito, now most likely needs to win to get in next week.
Yeah, that was unfortunate for all the drivers there, and it was just a huge pileup. I mean, again, everybody's frantic. Everybody wants to make some ground, and some of them try to push in, some of them try to barge into the door, but unfortunately they break the door completely, and then they've got no barrier whatsoever. And that's exactly what happened at that point, right on board with Schildhaus. He got a very good look at this. I was watching Will Rogers, who was trying to cut it down 3 wide, but obviously everything happens behind for Schildhaus, one of the most dominant trucks all night long. Fortunately able to save it, but in the likes of many of the non-playoff drivers and Adam Cabot, it is just a huge parking garage here in the midst of the cornfield. They are lost in the sea of plants, and you'll take a look at it once again as Slate got turned in the middle of the field. Look at this avoidance, though, by Kenan.
At least, yeah, that's all. That's really impressive. Taylor Burris, what do you have from pit road?
A couple of trucks have come down pit road. Joshua Slate, Gary Sexton, Adam Cabot, Ford Martin are trying to get their trucks repaired right now. James Bickford also had to do that recently as well. Brandon Brown, of course, still stuck on pit road. We had already 2 trucks out of tonight's race. Brian Boris Cook and Shane Van Gisbergen are out for tonight's competition, but we have to wait and see. Looking over Gary Sexton's machine, it is pretty banged up pretty badly on that Battle Beaver. He's going to need some work, but also keeping an eye on Joshua Slate, who was down on pit road for a couple of seconds. He's got his fast repair completed. He'll be rejoining. And unfortunately, Ford Martin, Adam Cabot are out of tonight's race.
So Cabot now officially a must-win. We are officially now under our first attempt of a green-white checker. We have 3 available to us if we need them, and this is going to be many different kinds of chaotic, the likes of which we probably have not seen in some time in Monday Night Racing. We've had races with green-white checker finishes, but none have carried this kind of weight to them in this season so far, where the winner, if they're a playoff driver, is going to the championship for automatically to race at the Carolina eSports Hub on February 7th. Colin Fern back on the gas. Big green egg, green flag back out in the air. 2 laps to go in the Sim Seats Challenge at Iowa.
Colin Fern is saying, see you later, guys. They're 3 wide throughout the field. They come rocketing off turn number 2. If they get the white flag, the next flag ends the race. They're all clean for the most part. Down into turn number 3, DJ Cummings winds up in second. He's going to have one shot at Colin Fern off 4.
One more shot and then another lap to go for it, but we get the white flag. So here's your final lap of the Sim Seats Challenge, all about Colin Fern through 1 and 2.
Smithley now to the inside of DJ Cummings. They're side by side, but this is only clearing Fern. Final corners left for the Brandonville Motorsports truck to win into the Championship 4.
He started 16th on the grid and drove past everybody at the end of it, and even though he got a little bit loose out the corner, he will still find his way to victory lane, and Colin Fern gets his second victory of the season in the Sim Seats Challenge from iRacing's virtual Iowa Speedway. But more importantly, Colin Fern is the first driver to punch his ticket to the Championship 4 at the Carolina eSports Hub. He will be racing for the Monday Night Racing Pro Series presented by Rowdy Energy Season 4 Championship.
What a finish. I mean, Colin Fern played it right. He stayed out. He got the caution that he needed. And Colin Fern's in the championship because he stayed out. That's unbelievable. He played it exactly the way he needed to. The luck was on his side. Sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good. And tonight, I think Colin Fern was both.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I think that's a fair assessment as we are bringing you tonight's Martin Sports winning moment. Founded by Scott Martin nearly 10 years ago in the frozen region of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, Martin Sports strives for the best custom apparel for your needs. Whether or not you need shirts for your office, jerseys for a local sports team, or specially designed apparel for your sim racing group, Martin Sports has you covered. Along with shirts and other team wear, they also offer gloves specifically crafted for sim racing that are lightweight, breathable, and complete with padded leather palms. Use the code PODIUM to receive 25% off of any sim racing glove at martinsports906.com, and you can also visit their Facebook page at facebook.com/martinsports. Time to turn our attention to the final results and tell you where your favorite driver finished in the Sim Seats Challenge at iRacing's virtual Iowa Speedway. Colin Fern, Championship 4 driver in Season 4 of Monday Night Racing by virtue of his victory tonight, ahead of DJ Cummings by a 1/10 of a second, and Garrett Smithley came home third. We'll hear from all 3 of those drivers in our post-race show coming up. Matt Stolneck finishes in 4th. Justin Malillo comes home in P5. Robbie Lyons brought it home in the 6th position. 7th went to Steve Affont. Will Rogers and Preston Pardis, nice recovery after being called on the wrong side of the pit strategy to come back with top 10s. And Anthony Alfredo, the Al Motorsports machine for Lockdown Racing, finishes off our top 10 this evening tonight.
Raja Karuth, who had an up and down night all race long from Iowa, somehow with the red flag and the restart ends up P11. Brad Perez in the 60 truck had also an up and down evening, performed well. He finishes P12. Devin Henry, who started all the way back in P32. He ends up in P13 by the end of this race. Brett Baldick in the 4. Remember, we saw him in an incident earlier tonight, although he rebounds for 14th. David Schildhaus, arguably one of the most dominant trucks all race long, is only able to suffice for P15. Max Kennan, despite a restart violation earlier in the midst of this race, he comes home P16. Gabe Wood for JD Motor Esports arrives in P17. 18th will go to the 27 of Michael Massey. Charlotte Phoenix's James Bickford, after starting in P20, he'll end up P19. And rounding out the top 20 will be the Lockdown Racing machine of Brandon Brown.
Kenneth, we've got a lot of playoff drivers outside the top 20 tonight. Seth Eggert finishes in 21st, Joshua Slate 22nd, Garrett Miller finishes 23rd, then Mike Clay in 24th, Case Carlebach finishes 25th, Mark Rebellis 26th, Gary Sexton in 27th. Ryan Vargas, first car 1 lap down in 28th. He's a playoff driver. Ford Martin finishes out of the race in 29th. Adam Cabot did not finish in 30th. He's a playoff driver. Vargas and Cabot both are going to have their work cut out for them next week at Nashville. Final 2 on the grid. Shane Van Gisbergen in 31st, 6 laps down out of the race. And Brian Boris Cook, he had some technical issues with his wheel. He finishes 32nd, 21 laps down and out of the race, James.
There's your full field rundown for the Sim Seats Challenge. We are now joined by Colin Fern, Championship 4 driver in Monday Night Racing Season 4. How's that sound to you, first and foremost?
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Pike. Yeah, that's awesome. It's been a lot of fun this entire season, and obviously going into the playoffs, I felt pretty comfortable going into the first round. But the second round being only 2 races, you know, one bad race could set you out, and to have the luck we did with the yellow falling when it did, and so those late race restarts getting good jumps. It's exciting. Get to relax next week and get ready for Fontana.
Everything pivoted on your decision to stay out. So just run us through your thought process there. What led to your decision to stay out, and why did you think that was the right decision to make?
Well, Max was a lap down and Raja was a lap down. And then Vargas sped on pit road. So there was 3 playoff guys that were having major trouble. And I just felt like we could gamble and try to catch a caution and have track position and a tire advantage. And John and Jeremy and I, we all discussed it, and I was pretty content with running it out till about 10 to go, and luckily the caution came out with 15 to go, and it fell right into our laps, man. It was awesome.
So it was almost about trapping some of the other playoff competitors a lap down, which is something that I don't think we really touched on all that much in the broadcast, but it's a valid point just the same. And even though, you know, some people will say there was some luck involved because you did get the yellow at the right time, I think, and we touched on this on the broadcast earlier before that cycle, it would belie the drive that you had to come from 16th all the way to the front, because even before we had that cycle of green flag pit stops, you were mixing it up right there with Will Rogers. You were mixing it up with David Jonas. You drove your way to the front. So what did you figure out in practice or in happy hour that you managed to use to your advantage here?
I just ran the top side. I don't like being on the bottom, and you have to have too much wheel in it, and you have to play with the throttle. When you're on the outside, you can just lay in the throttle, screw tire saving, screw, you know, patience. You can just throw it down in there and try to get to someone's right rear and make them get out of the gas. That's basically all I did. And obviously restarts, we had good restarts all night long. And John did a great job spotting me through some of the melees on the stack ups. But yeah, it's just high, wide, and handsome all night long.
You're in, you're done, you're through. So you hinted you might be able to relax a little bit, but does that mean we might see you taking the Xfinity car to Fontana this week as opposed to next week and trying to lay down some early laps for the season finale on February 7th?
No, I kind of meant more relaxed, like not be stressed out next Monday, because I still want to go win that son of a gun, you know?
Which is fair. So to that end, especially now with the announcement earlier today that all of this is taking place at the Carolina eSports Hub in downtown Charlotte, to have a chance to win this championship in person, live, against your competitors, in front of a live audience, there's a lot to take in there, but very quickly, can you get a sense of what that means to you, what having that opportunity is to you?
Yeah, it's really cool, you know, and Ford and Charlotte Phoenix and Paul Sutton and Kyle Busch and all those guys that have done everything to put this show on. You know, this is a huge moment for them, and just to be a part of it is really cool. And I can't thank those guys enough for giving me that opportunity. You know, being a rookie in here, it's kind of been touch and go with what I can get away with and what I can't. And now that we get to go to Charlotte, I get to go shotgun a Rowdy Energy when we win the championship. So that'll be pretty fun.
Could be a party and a half, but we know Colin Fern is going to be there on February 7th at the Carolina eSports Hub. Winner tonight in the SimSeats Challenge for Vanderbilt Motorsports. Colin, congratulations on victory number 2 of the season, and we will see you not only next week, but on February 7th, just outside of Uptown Charlotte as well.
Absolutely, and y'all be on the lookout for them T-Patch design paints, man. These guys, he does a great job, and I had an issue with trading paints tonight, so I had to run an older one. But T-Patch designs, Timmy Pacioli, he did a great job. Thank you.
T-Patch, a name we've heard for a long time in the sim racing community. No surprise there as Colin Fern gets the victory. We now turn to second place. It's a season's best finish for DJ Cummings, who is now with Kenneth Bueno.
Well, DJ, you were staying out at the time of the last yellow flag, apart from the green-white checkered incidents. But for you were running up near the front just behind Colin Fern, and then all of a sudden the yellow comes out in the midst of pit strategy amongst the entire field. How important was that for you, despite having a fast truck all night long, to help you get in a position like this in the final laps of this race and have a shot at the win?
It certainly put me in a really good shape, because if that was good, my plan was to just let it run. I was saving fuel. I was just going to stay out, And I was actually, I had saved just enough where I was 2 laps to the good, and I was just going to let it run and see how many people were going to do the same strategy. But then the yellow came out, and I was running about 4th or 5th at the time, and everybody around me started pitting about 5-10 laps before that yellow came out. So they were wasting their last set, and I had still had that one fresh set of tires there in the bank. So right when we came down there, I was able to get those fresh tires and still keep that top 3 track position, which was great. And just didn't have enough there. I would have had to have cat-like reflexes in order to get the same jump that Colin did there on that restart. But glad I was able to keep it in P2, and definitely awesome evening for that eNASCAR Ford F-150.
And I wouldn't necessarily call the caution, at least for the speed of this truck, a fluke, because it looked like all night long you had the speed to run into the top 5, top 6, top 8, top 10, wherever you were. It seemed as though you were content running up front. The truck was fast. What seemed to work here at this Iowa Speedway for you that kind of played into your strengths, or maybe gave you a little bit more incentive to run well? How was it to run this truck here tonight at this track?
It was the first couple of laps was all about making sure you didn't push the envelope too hard and kill your tires early on. And I had noticed that early on in the race, a lot of people were doing the same thing, or were doing that and just burning up their stuff. So about 10-15 laps into the run, you could see them slowly start coming back to me. And it's Iowa in these trucks are very difficult to pass, so I don't blame them for trying to go hard and get those few spots there and then try and hold it. But I feel like as far as just keeping the pace at that point, just to stay there in the top 10 the majority of the race, just going a little bit easier those first couple of laps, and then just keep it pace. And if I got to pass a few trucks, every once in a while you would maybe have a couple guys brush the wall, or you would have a wreck here and there. We had a couple of close calls. I think I recall one of the first restarts there after that red flag. I thought I was going to get KO'd by our season 3 champ, Mr. Robbie Lyons, but somehow didn't walked away with nothing there. So that's got very lucky, but I'll certainly take a top 3, especially when I'm not in the playoffs.
A very big race for you, and I think a very big day for M&R in total. I know you're part of the admin team that makes all this happen together, and you guys had the privilege to announce earlier in the afternoon that you guys are going to be heading to the Carolina Esports Hub to celebrate the Championship 4 in a very big race. So when we get the Xfinity cars over to the Virtual Auto Club Speedway, how cool was that for you, being a part of the main team to release that announcement, of course, be in development of such a special event that's going to happen in a couple of weeks?
Man, February 7th cannot get here soon enough. It took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears of all the folks behind the scenes. Obviously, our founder and co-owner Forward Martin and myself and Matt Stolneck, working with all the Podium guys and the folks at the Carolina Esports Hub to start planning out and putting together just a phenomenal event. Obviously, please go and buy tickets. We have we posted the link there on social media, and you could also go to MondayNightRacing.net. We have the championship event ticket link up there. Please come out. It's going to be a phenomenal event. One of the rare occasions in sim racing. Hopefully, we can make some history for it's just going to be. Just get the sim racing community together and just put an awesome event, and hopefully just grow eNASCAR, grow sim racing, and grow the world of esports here as we're in 2022. And we're just really excited and looking forward to it.
Well, no doubt. I think everybody's excited for February 7th in a couple of weeks' time when we close off this championship. But I think for you, a lot to be excited about after this P2 finish here tonight from the Iowa Speedway. DJ, on behalf of us, want to congratulate you on this second place running in the F-150. And, of course, wishing you the best of luck for Nashville Super Speedway next week and the championship race in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
It's DJ Cummings that rounds up the top 2, just short of the race win, but nonetheless a great race and a great ending to this event from Iowa Speedway. We'll kick it back to the last driver within our podium, and it sits to 52 of Garrett Smithley. Jacob, you're caught up with him.
Garrett Smithley came home in P3 tonight, and Garrett, you were up at the front pretty much from the drop of the green flag. Started on the outside pole, finished up at the front. Even with the caution coming in the middle of green flag pit stops, you were able to stay up at the front. Take us through your night.
Yeah, it was an up and down night. If you told me that I was going to run third here at Iowa on iRacing, I would have been ecstatic. This is not historically one of my better tracks, and for some reason I just hit on it tonight. We qualified outside pole, probably best qualifying effort of the season, and ran up front. Unfortunately, got an unlucky penalty there on the second pit stop, I believe. So went back to 29th and drove up to 5th, and fortunately again the caution came out, and we ended up restarting up front. Cautions didn't fall our way there at the end. I think we definitely had a better truck than both DJ and Colin, especially in the long run. So I think if we had gotten 5, 6, 7 laps in, I think we definitely had something for them. But all in all, best race of the season for me. I think, to my knowledge, this is probably the first time that I'm talking to you guys this season. So definitely a different far cry from what we had last season. Luck has not gone our way. So happy to be back on the podium and have our 52 Ford F-150 Nurtec ODT truck looking good, running up front, and got some good momentum going into next week.
Looking ahead to next week, the Super Late Models at Nashville Super Speedway. Do you think maybe next week could be a chance for you to return to victory lane this season?
Yeah, we're defending winner of that race from last year, so or last season, I should say. So definitely, and that was a race where I was pretty sick. I got like 15 minutes of practice, so getting on here and being prepared and getting some more laps, I think that definitely we'll have a shot. So hopefully we will, but definitely happy about our night tonight. Definitely want to give a shout out to Ford and Podium and Rowdy Energy, Kyle Busch, all the guys that make this M&R racing deal as big as it is. Super excited about the news about the championship race being live at the Charlotte eSports Arena. Super cool to see that. Super cool to see it grow, and guys like Rowdy supporting it, coming and racing with us, and it's been a lot of fun. So hopefully we can close out the season and have two. What we got? 2 left, so we'll have 2 really good races here to close out the season.
Well, Garrett, congratulations on the P3, and we will see you next week from the virtual Nashville Super Speedway.
Thanks, guys.
Garrett Smithley coming home P3, the bottom step of the podium here at Iowa. James?
Where do you begin? Genuinely, where do you begin with this? Because we had so much in this race before that yellow flag and then after that yellow flag. I can tell you where we can continue. That's honestly probably the easier thing to do, which is to say that we'll be with the Super Late Models at Nashville Super Speedway, a combo that returns from last summer into the season 4 season of races. But last chance to make the championship 4 if you haven't, done what Colin Fern did. So, good luck, playoff drivers. We'll see how you do with it. In either case, 8 p.m. Twitch.tv/Podium2, the Podium Facebook and YouTube pages, and the M&R Twitter page. Next Monday night, there are your live point standings after this race, and this really does a nice job to summarize all the madness that we saw after the yellow flag came out. Fern is in with the win. Schulthouse, Rogers, and Caruth, after all of that, end up on the bright side of it. Max Kennan, who we thought was toast for a while, ends up only 5 points back of Caruth, so that's not impossible. And even then, Ryan Vargas, Adam Cabot, even though Vargas had a speeding penalty that eventually put him in the back and Cabot had the wreck. Yes, it's not a great situation, but that's still not the biggest of gaps there, Kenneth Bueno.
Yeah, it's definitely still in reach, even if you're guys like Cabot or Vargas. But it's safe to say, coming out of Iowa, you've got your work ahead of you. You know your assignment. You've got to understand it, and you've got to tackle it the best way possible. And it's pretty much a dogfight that's going to happen next week, because it's not an easy combo in 1 week time. Nashville Super Speedway can get to hot track temps. We see the concrete surface, how much it eats the tires, and then you factor that in with such a high power, low downforce super late model. You bring in a wild combination that's going to really put drivers on their toes. And for the case of Vargas, Cabot, and even anybody locked in behind that cut line, they're going to have a lot of work to do. They're going to need a lot of practice, and it's going to be more exciting to see how they're going to fare come in 1 week time.
It will be a madhouse. Let's remind you of some of the upcoming events headed your way on Podium eSports and iRacing. It's the Shenandoah Shine Race of Champions coming your way from the Legacy Texas Motor Speedway this Wednesday night at 9 on the Podium eSports Switch channel. The iRacing Short Course National Series from the Short Course at Crandon headed your way on twitch.tv/Podium2, as well as the Podium Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages on Thursday night at 10 p.m. It's the eNASCAR International iRacing Series from the Road Course at Daytona, Saturday at noon Eastern on eNASCAR.com/live. And then the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League from Virginia International Raceway, February 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern on iRacing.com/live as well. That'll be next Tuesday. We get after it. Jacob Hitz, by the way, two things I think of when I think of Nashville in this combo before we go. One, you're going to have to manage the right rear tire because you drive off of it a lot. And two, all of the pressure for everyone not named Colin Fern that's still in the playoffs.
And that's what's going to make this so interesting, right? Because you've got 6 guys fighting for 3 spots left. Plus, they're going to be racing the rest of the Monday Night Racing field. It's not like it's just going to be those 6 gearing up for a race at Nashville. You've got the entire rest of the field that are outside of the points and won't be able to have a shot at the championship this season, also fighting for the race win. You could have a situation like tonight where you've got non-playoff drivers finishing up inside the top 10. DJ Cummings, Garrett Smithley, Stalnick, Melillo, Lyons, Affont, Pardis, Alfredo. We had 2 playoff guys inside the top 10. We could see something like that, or even no playoff drivers inside the top 10 next week. I don't think it'll happen, but there's always that chance. 3 drivers, or 3 spots, 6 drivers fighting for those 3 spots. It's all going to be focused on the playoffs next week.
The only thing that is certain is that nothing is certain. And we will head to the Music City to wind up a lot of loose ends and make it very clear which 4 drivers we need to pay attention to when we get to the biggest race in the history of Monday Night Racing in 2 weeks' time, live and in person from the Carolina Esports Hub in Uptown Charlotte. You can head to mnrfinale.eventbrite.com to buy your tickets now. You will not want to miss how this all wraps up. But for now, we leave you from our broadcast of the SimSeats Challenge at iRacing's virtual Iowa Speedway here on Podium Esports. For everyone at Monday Night Racing, Ford Martin, Paul Sutton, and Josh Mendoza in race control, in particular for tonight for his outstanding work resetting the field during the yellow flag. For our team at Podium Esports, Gary Sexton, John Theodore, Cisco Scaramuza. For our camera builder, Dougie Beard, our overlay builder, Michael Hall, Cameron Albernon, and Nicholas Weatherby coming together on social media to make things happen. And for the crew on tonight's broadcast, for our producer, Ryan Bauer, our pit reporter, Taylor Burris, and my colleagues in the booth, Jacob Hitz and Kenneth Bueno, I am James Bright, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching our broadcast of the SimSeats Challenge from Iowa for the Monday Night Racing Pro Series presented by Rowdy Energy. Colin Fern is your winner, and he will race for a championship on February 7th.